Well, the Brazilian Grand Prix is over, and there was an absolute masterclass by one man that everyone had been either shooting down if you didn't like him, or doubting, or basically saying, where was he? And that man is Flavio Briatore, an absolute masterclass this weekend. I think we can all agree. And I think Verstappen did well as well, right?
First of all, fuck Flavio. I think let's get that out of the way. Yeah, and Max did all right.
Yeah, Max did okay. Yeah, lots to talk about. So
yeah. So
where do we
have
begin?
You finally caught on with the whole thing? I mean,
yeah. I
had an eventful Sunday, or the entire weekend.
There was. I didn't think I drank that much, but I realized I brought 24 beers, and no one else was drinking. 350 milliliter bottles, so still
pints,
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, pint in Ireland is 500 millimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit less, but there was 24 in the fridge. I thought that, I hadn't drank that much until I realized that not only had I gone for 12 more at night, but also that no one else was drinking beer. So apparently one or two people took one at some point, but it looks like I drank like 20 of those, then had some rum. So I was dying during the entire race.
That's a lot.
That started at 8:30 a.m. for me. So yeah. Yeah. So if anyone noticed I wasn't on Twitter, that's I was dying, so I could not care less. Yeah. So my morning went about as well as Lance Stroll's weekend. So yeah.
Could have been worse. Could have been Lando Norris's weekend.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So talking about dying,
yeah,
Lando Norris's title hopes. I think they're dead by now, isn't it?
Over.
They're gone.
Yeah. I mean, he would need a miracle, right? It's 20 points per weekend he would need now.
I don't even know.
A little bit more.
No, I don't think I even.
Was it? It's 62 points.
Done.
It's 62 points he's ahead. And so there's three weekends left. So yeah,
3 races and one
points.
sprint. Right?
Yeah, so he'd need like 21 points per weekend, something like that.
Yeah,
exactly 21 points per weekend. It's not happening. He's mathematically still in it, but it's not happening. Let's be honest.
Yeah, true. It's not.
Over.
It's done.
Yeah, unless Red Bull, move their bib or something.
Right? It's the British bias.
No. Well, I'm saying unless Red Bull move their bib some weekend between now and the end of the week or end of the month, and then
or maybe the cooling trick for the tires work. For a change,
maybe.
Right?
Yeah. But that would be McLaren, no? So
yeah, but that'll help in some way.
Yeah.
Anyways, Max Verstappen. I mean, first, what's your view? How would you rate the entire thing?
Absolutely brilliant. He got very unlucky in qualifying. I think, to be honest, with the red flag, I've thought about this since, because I went back and obviously I was dying yesterday, so I went back and watched the qualifying and watched parts of the race again.
We will the entire. Don't explain the whole thing.
Okay.
And don't give your take. We'll get to that later.
But yeah, look. Regardless.
So by the way, stay tuned for that as well.
Okay. Look, I mean, whatever way, we'll talk about it in a while. But yeah, unfortunately, qualifying didn't go well for him at all. Ended up P17. They might as well have just used the FP1 session results with the way that grid turned out. Like, essentially, it was basically the same.
It was just the same.
I actually think it would have been better for Max if they had used FP1. I can't remember, but I'd need to look again. No, he would have been 20th, so he would have been 3 places worse off. But yeah, so that didn't go well. As you said, we'll talk about that later. But an absolute masterclass in the race. In fairness, a little bit of luck went his way there. The red flag was well timed. I will say one thing. I am very surprised.
I wouldn't say the red flag, by the way. I'd say the safety car.
Maybe so, the safety car, yeah, because Norris and Russell had pitted under VSC, then the safety car came out, then the red flag. But I will say one thing. I was watching that very, 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 very hungover, as I've already explained. So I was a little surprised by McLaren's actions, because even my half-dead brain saw Max kind of, where he was when they pitted. And I said to myself, even if Max's tires are worn and it starts raining, he's going to just hang it out, because he has nothing to lose by just trying to hold track position. So I was like, realistically, why are they pitting now? They should absolutely just forget about Russell, because that doesn't matter. If Russell wins, he comes second, you're still getting a points lead. So why not just hang it out, wait until Max pits or Max is forced to pit, and then see what happens. So I was a little bit surprised when they did that, and then as soon as the red flag came out, my brain just went, yeah, thought so, like told you, that was a bad idea. So I was surprised McLaren made that mistake, to be honest. I know Norris was talking about it, but the fact that Norris was talking about his tyres and they came over and said, look, we're going to hold off here. I was like, okay, well, maybe McLaren are on this. And once again, they weren't. It just feels to me like an obvious thing, especially after Mexico when Max said, if I was just going to hold him off so he couldn't win, So like, even if he was lying about that, it doesn't matter. McLaren should have thought, well, that's in Red Bull and Max's head now. So all he's got to do is hang it out in front and hope something goes wrong for us. So I don't know. It was an odd choice, I thought. I get the logic, but it, obviously it
What's
didn't
the
work
logic
out,
in your view?
They probably thought that when the rain because the rain did get a lot heavier. So they probably thought under the heavier rain, the worn tires would be a problem. But I don't think they were counting for the fact of like, okay, well, then you can just probably slow it down and hold off because it's going to be a problem for everybody, including Max. And I think once again, it's kind of targeting the wrong people. Like they were focused on Russell, which I think was just the wrong idea. Like you're in a title fight, you focus on Max. Max is only focused on you. So you've got to beat him at his own game. And it's once again where, look, Norris made some mistakes. We'll talk about, I'm sure, a lot of these things, but it's once again where I feel like McLaren don't have their head in the game right. And we'll talk about maybe Norris more, but I kind of am getting the feeling that if we got the same season next year, or maybe not the same, but if we get Max and Norris on equal par next year, I think the people writing off Norris need to be a bit careful as well, because I think this has been the period that has basically, like I've said earlier, battle hardened him. That response he gave after the race, he would not have given normally. And I know he probably regrets saying it a little bit, but I like it.
It's it's a clip. It's a out of context clip. He didn't say anything on that lines. It wasn't really. He didn't say that Max was. What was the clip? He said that
it's not talent. It's just luck.
Yeah. And that was not for Max per se. He was talking about the strategy and everything around it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
it
was, and again, the assholes on Twitter and wherever.
See, I only saw it as a Max. Yeah, I didn't watch the interviews because, like I said, I was dying and throwing up. So I just saw clips of it. All right. Well, if you didn't say it about Max, then that's fine. And to be honest, I was like,
that's what happened actually. As soon as I got the audio clip and I was hearing it, I couldn't really get the context, what was floating on X and everything. And again, the kind of fans are assholes. We'll get to that later.
I think regardless, I think this period, like Austin, Mexico, and Brazil, I think this you can see Lando's attitude towards Max and towards the way he races and stuff completely changing. And I think next year, the bigger onus, realistically, if they have a car again next year, I think, look, anyone who doubts Norris, I think the problem I've doubted Norris on has been his mental attitude. I think there's been points where he's let himself down. He's focused on the wrong things. All these. He's maybe given Max a little bit of a pass. They've been too friendly. I think there's been certain things like that. I think when it comes to race pace and qualifying, anyone who says Norris isn't top tier is just biased as far as I'm concerned, because he has shown time and time again, when it comes to just raw pace, he is an incredibly quick driver. When it comes to tyre management, he's very, very good. Like all these different things. Racecraft. Look at the move on Max in Mexico. Like he just went for it. He can drive wheel to wheel. It's been his attitude, and I feel like the last 3 races, the upside to him not being in the championship anymore is I think this will put in his brain now to be far more ruthless next year, because he'll know that this has been thrown away now by silly mistakes throughout the season, more so by McLaren as well. Like I've talked about this in the past. So I think next year, I think realistically, anyone expecting Piastri to just walk away on Norris if they have a fast car, my bets would be against that. I think if they lose the championship next year, it's because of McLaren, not Norris now. But you could see the change in him over this triple header, and I think it's for the best for him. Talking about Max, though, masterclass. I mean, one of his best drives. Did he get a bit lucky with the red flag? We'll talk about it, I'm sure. But realistically, he put himself in a position to take advantage of it. So, I mean, like, you know, if you want to talk about luck, Hamilton, was it 2019 did the same thing? 2000? No, but there was another drive. Was he starting in 16th or something? Right? Yeah, but there's been so many where Hamilton, Vettel, all these people have come through the field, and there's always a little bit of luck. But
obviously, I mean that's part of the sport.
The drive that he put in was spectacular, and 10 out of the 11 last laps he did fastest laps. Just you know, different league. It was incredible. It
was him making a statement, and
yeah.
Okay, let's get one thing straight. Max is probably, in my view, I tend to rate drivers after 1975 or so. I don't go before that in terms of the greatest of all time, because it's a different era, it's a different car, and the ecosystem of F1 was different then compared to what happened later.
Yep.
I think Max is right now, for me, he is next to Michael Schumacher.
He's the best driver since Michael Schumacher, without a doubt. And
how bad would a Charles Leclerc, a Lando Norris, a George Russell, or Oscar Piastri, or Lewis, or Alonso would feel right now? Because there's a fucking Max Verstappen on the grid. And I think from 1994 till 2004, that was what every other driver felt when there was a Michael Schumacher on the grid.
Yeah, as soon as Schumacher had the right car, they knew he's almost unbeatable.
Good.
Yeah,
he's just too good.
That's why my first year watching was Alonso 2004, was Alonso 2004 was my first year watching. I always get those years mixed up. That was the dominant year for Schumacher, and then going into 2005, it was like no one's going to beat him. Like he's just ultimate form. And that's why, even though there's mitigating factors, you could say, of like tires, you know, the Bridgestone, Michelin, Alonso beating Schumacher, there's a reason I think people who've watched as long as us think of Alonso so highly. Yeah. It's because if someone now comes along and beats Verstappen, if you're a new fan and you're a Verstappen fan, that's what it would feel like, someone beating Verstappen. Maybe that's why the two of us give Norris less of a hard time than a lot of people. Because for me, watching Norris go toe-to-toe with Max and Leclerc go toe-to-toe with Max, I know how good Max is. So when Norris folds under pressure from Max, that's not to me it's like, Max. Oh, he's bottled, he's terrible. It's like me going, oh no, someone folded to Schumacher. It's like, it's Schumacher. Of course they did. You know, like it's... So, credit needs to be given where credit's due to Max. Incredible. Another incredible drive. And as soon as he got ahead, you just knew, that's it. It's over. Like, you know, he's got this.
Yeah, and it's not only about as soon as he got ahead. I don't think there was even one other driver who pulled off the moves that he did.
No.
Ease with which he overtook Lewis, the ease with which he overtook Alonso. Oscar was caught unawares. I mean, he had a shitty weekend, honestly.
Also, apparently, Oscar maybe gives us some insights into McLaren's struggles in the race. That car wasn't great in the race.
I mean, I predicted that as well. Yeah. And even the move on Ocon was not expecting the... It was
Ocon's a hard wheel-to-wheel defender. Like, he doesn't let people buy easy.
In the first restart, he was able to. The second restart, I think Ocon also played safe because he knew the team needed the points. Yeah. So there was also that in the year, and if that was not, maybe he would have been a bit more of an asshole. But who knows what would have happened in that case.
That was the point when he had to overtake Ocon. Same with, not with Leclerc. Leclerc gives space, but with Ocon, I was like,
he's not going to give space.
I genuinely was like, this could be the moment where Max maybe could DNF, because he's going to go for the win and Ocon might just go, screw it. Like, I'm taking it. Nothing to lose.
And I think there is a point where maybe I think Ocon would have thought that maybe he could have been a bit more aggressive. But I think once you see Max end the race 18 seconds ahead, there's just no point. It was a waste of time in that case. But I think for me, what stands out in all of this is, if there's a driver that can do something like this when his teammate is not even finishing in points, I think that should tell you something. And again, we shit on Checo a lot. Everyone does. it's become a favorite pastime for everyone right now.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's a bit unfair as well. But man, if you're winning the race by more than 18 seconds and your teammate is not even in the picture, this is special talent. I think
Yeah,
that's, you have to acknowledge that thing.
yeah. He is. I think you and me agree on this. The best driver since Schumacher,
Yeah,
and that's
without a doubt.
that is a big statement when both of us are Vettel fanboys. First of all, so Vettel's been one of the drivers in between.
Yeah.
You've got Alonso in between. You've got
And there's
Raikkonen in between.
Hamilton.
You've got Hamilton in between. And I
Yeah.
am still saying that now. I think and it's not just this weekend. Obviously, it's everything in the
Yeah.
past, but
Yeah.
conclusively for me, he is better than all of those drivers.
Yeah.
And
Without a doubt.
you can say about the stats everything you want. I'm just talking when it comes to actual on-tracks performances, because the problem with stats in F1 is a lot of it's down to the car you have, the team you have. There's only so much you can do. But
Yeah.
when he has a sniff, he takes it. And that's Schumacher-esque. That is just not giving up anything, ever.
I think he did not need to do that lunge on Ocon in the second restart.
No,
He did not.
no.
He just needed to finish ahead. And that was just, well,
It was the right side of aggression as well, because there's been a couple of times this year where Max goes over the line. In fairness, it is kind of Schumacher style in that as well, where Schumacher had times where he
100%.
went over the line. This is the perfect Max, where he's qualified, he's starting in P17. He's pissed off, and instead of getting frustrated and annoyed, he just goes, right, fuck this, I'm taking it. And it was brilliant.
I mean, I don't like patting myself on the back too often, but I predicted it. I predicted this thing in my preview and everything that I'd done. I mean, before, in our preview, I had not, because by then I had not seen the weather predictions. And once I saw that, I just called it.
Yeah.
It's Max. And the reason behind it, and I think it's important we specify this thing. And again, there are a lot of diehard fans which are actually foolish. Let's get this thing straight, because they will tell you that, they'll tell you that in any car Max was going to win that race, in any team he's going to win that race. I'm going to disagree. The fact that Max won, Red Bull played a big role.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And we need to start identifying that, because there was only one driver out of the top 4 teams who actually knew. Again, both the Alpine drivers, they called the shots themselves. It was entirely down to them whether they were going to stay out or pit. Entirely down to them. Mercedes pitted, Lando pitted, McLaren, Ferrari pitted much earlier. I couldn't even understand why. But again, that's Ferrari.
At least they put wet weather tires on. That's a plus.
Yeah, so that's a plus. And these are 3 of the top 4 teams in conditions that are like this, where, look, championships are won. They are not won on big moments. Like, if a Lando winning a race by 20 seconds, that's not going to win you championships. What's going to win you championships is these small moments. The moment in Silverstone where they made the wrong call. The moment in this weekend where they made the wrong call again.
Yeah.
Or in Canada to an extent.
Yep.
These are the small moments that you have to win. And I don't remember the last time Red Bull lost that moment. I don't think I remember even once this happening. And, this is the kind of confidence that, to an extent, Lewis had in 2018 in Mercedes, and Vettel did not have in Ferrari. And you saw how Vettel crumbled, because 50% of your brain is not even confident that the strategy would be correct.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And that's the thing, isn't it, when you're...
the credit.
Yeah, and when you're in these sorts of battles, you need the confidence in your team,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, in fairness to Max as well, Max was saying, I think on the radio he was saying, we want to stay out.
Yeah.
But, easily you could have had the team go, no, like, box now, we need to cover this off, whatever.
Russell was furious at Mercedes. They pushed, they forced him to pit, and apparently the same happened with Lando as well, on the lap that they pitted. Before that, of course, there was a logic to it, and the logic was, apparently they realized, rightly or incorrectly, that there was not going to be a stoppage. It doesn't matter how bad the conditions were, because the conditions were supposed to stay in that particular intensity. The rain was supposed to stay for 5 odd minutes, And if you
And then it
remember,
would ease
as
off.
soon as as soon as the safety car came in, the weather kind of normalized. So that's what the race control had in mind, and that's what they basically banged on, that okay, we'll pit, we'll have new tires, and we'll try to push through.
Yeah.
But then came the safety car, and then came the red flag, and it screwed everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just things going wrong.
Yep.
Basically.
There is, like I said, there is an element of luck there as well. Like, I mean, you know, like it could have gone badly as well for Max. Like if the red flag and safety car didn't come out, then I think realistically, given how hard it was to overtake and later on, and I don't know if Max would have got past some of those drivers if he had had to box and come back out normally. You know, like there would have been certain drivers that would have been tough for him to get by.
Ocon was pulling a gap on him as well. I think in 2 or 3 laps, it was around 10 seconds or something that the gap he had pulled out already. So you could see the Alpine being better as the conditions got worse.
Yeah.
Or maybe he was taking more risks and Max was being a bit more sensible on that front.
Maybe, yeah.
So something on those lines. It's just that, look, again, not harping too much on luck, because, again, that's part of the sport and you have to understand these things.
This is the thing. This is all I'm saying. It's like, it's not like, oh, he got lucky and that's why he won. No, he drove a masterclass and put himself in the right position, and the luck also went his way. Like there's no, it's
Lewis Hamilton 2008, by the way. Just to, veer in a different direction. Lewis Hamilton
is
2008.
That Glock?
No, not that one. The Silverstone 2008. It's supposedly the best wet weather drive or something. If you look at the first stint, if Ferrari did not fuck up Raikkonen's tires, Kimi was going to win the race. He was hounding down Lewis, and Lewis decided to pit for new inters, and Ferrari decided to go on the same tires. They didn't really change, just fueled up again, and that changed the race. It's just these moments that work for you or don't work for you. That's just how it works. So
yeah.
And again, there's a question a lot of people are actually talking about. Someone put a poll out on X as well. In terms of best Brazilian Grand Prix races, where would you put this one?
Well, because he won the race, it's obviously better than him in, was it 2016 when he came through the field? I think it's better than that one. Even though, to be fair as well, like a lot of that was brilliant just because he was such a young driver his first year in was that his first year in Red Bull, right? 2015 was his Toro Rosso year. Yeah. So, and he came from, was it 16th to 3rd or 13th to 3rd, something like that? I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was. I think, as far as I remember, he ended up 3rd anyway. Obviously, this is even better because it's a win, but those were tricky conditions. This was incredible. I'm going to piss off Hamilton fans and say this, for me, is way better than Hamilton's 2021, not just because he came from further back, but also the conditions are different, and it's in a season where the cars are a lot closer.
No DRS.
No DRS. Most of Hamilton's passes were down that DRS on slower cars. So as much as that was a brilliant drive by Hamilton, this is definitely a lot better. I think this is probably the top of them, in fairness. I can't think of another one that outdoes it. I'd probably have to go back a long time.
Yeah. Fizzy 2003. Fisichella.
The year before I started watching, so I don't really remember it. I've probably seen clips of it. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yes.
Vettel 2012.
Well, Vettel 2012, I don't know if it was a better drive, but it certainly had a better outcome, if that makes sense. Yeah.
In what sense?
In that Vettel won the title. And I'm a Vettel fan, so...
Yeah. Why I'm mentioning this is because, again, I don't necessarily know how to rate them. I think Fisichella winning the race in a Jordan is probably something that will stand out a lot for me.
Jesus. Actually, sorry, that is that one. Yeah.
And I mean, again, it was also torrential rain, a lot of drivers making mistakes, him keeping his head, and basically, not sure if you remember this one, Kimi was given the win first, and then Jordan appealed because the race got red flagged, and then they went back, the classification went back to 1 lap earlier.
Okay, I think I've watched this race back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was the year before I started watching, But because Jordan and Senna and all those things, I've gone back and watched a lot of races. The problem is because I've not watched them in like the full season. A lot of the time when you're like, oh, this race this year, it's like I've probably seen it or seen highlights at least, but I wasn't watching it like glued to the screen, so it's not quite the same ingestion, you know.
And it's just, I mean, again, the whole, for me, it's hard to rate which one is better. I'd say it ranks very highly, and I think the context and everything matters. I'd also say one thing. I kind of saw this coming. I don't know why. I just had the feeling since Tuesday when I wrote the piece that it's going to rain. It's going to be chaotic, and I think Max and Red Bull tend to make the right decisions when it comes to this, and every other team tends to fuck up. The other driver I thought might do well was Lewis in a Mercedes, because he also tends to make the right calls in these conditions. That went pear-shaped, but anyways. So yeah, I mean, rounding up the whole thing, I think the championship is done.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
One thing I actually wanted to touch on, and again, this is going to piss off a lot of Max fans, which I tend to do a lot, apparently, in the last few weeks.
Because we've just spent like 10-15 minutes saying he's the best driver since Schumacher, and somehow we'll still get called anti-Max if we say anything
By the way,
nice. Or, you know.
I just saw a comment on one of the posts where, and it's a post where I have actually mentioned that Max is the best driver since Schumacher, and the comment is from a former follower. The comment is, but you also said that Lando is an elite driver. Not so elite now, is he? And
those two things have nothing to do with each other.
Precisely. I mean, anyways. So the question is actually based on what Damon Hill said, where he said that he silenced a lot of critics.
Yeah.
I do not agree with this at all, because at no point in time was Max's ability as a driver ever questioned. The only thing that was questioned was whether he'll keep it clean, to be honest. That's all. Other than that, nothing was ever... I mean, did anyone ever question he'll get the best out of the car? Or will he be the best driver in terms of getting the perfect performance from that Red Bull, which is very unpredictable at times? No. The problem was, will he keep it clean? That's it.
If you were still... Like, Damon Hill has talked about how brilliant a driver he is on various occasions. Same as Brundle, same as most of these pundits have all talked about how brilliant Max is. The problem is, it's like there are people like Ted Kravitz, for example, who like to absolutely drool over British bias, right? But then there's, you know, Damon Hill is a former world champion. You don't like some of his opinions, but then you'll like other ones, you know, like that. This is the whole point. Like, if you've watched Max Verstappen until this point and you're still questioning his ability, then as far as I'm concerned, you have to be biased, because, you know, like,
or a Lewis Hamilton fan.
Yeah, if you're not convinced by now, you're never going to be convinced. Nothing's ever going to convince you that he is. Even if you want to say Hamilton's better, that is an argument you could have. Like, there's reasons you could say Hamilton's better. You know, we could have that argument all day. I think he's the best driver since Schumacher. I say that as a Vettel fan, so I don't say it lightly. But anyone who questions how good he is, regardless of where you want to put him on that totem pole, it's just like, okay, you know, you're never going to make that decision. So and Damon Hill, I think, maybe you're right in saying like he hasn't silenced the critics. Depends on what we're talking about. If people were criticizing how good he is, then I don't know if he's silent, if anyone's silenced, because they're clearly morons. They haven't been watching. As for the dirty driving thing, I don't know, because like this was a brilliant drive. It was a clean drive. It was fantastic. But
he was never in that situation, right? I think the whole thing comes down... Look, if the Brazilian Grand Prix is in dry weather, where McLaren is probably the better car, and somehow Max is in a situation where he's fending off Lando, and if he does not play it fair, and if there are moves which are shady, in that case, he's not basically being the... What should we call it? Then he's not silencing the critics. He never really... He didn't... The thing is, we did not reach that point of the championship anyway. It ended before that.
And we're not going to now,
Yeah, so we're not going to now. So it's probably maybe some other time. The thing is, those questions still remain, because whatever I heard from Jos Verstappen and from Max, they are non-repentant and they don't think they did anything wrong. And there's also this act where, look, my car is, what am I supposed to do? Well, not do, not this is what the answer is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think the critics were ever after him for him not producing the results in a Red Bull. They were
Yeah.
after him for the stuff he does in the car when things are not going his way.
Yeah, yeah.
We never got the answer to it. We might get the answer to it next season, or we might not, or we might have to wait a few years. But that's a question that stays, in my view. Because it, again, look, I'm a Michael Schumacher fan, and I understand when these things are done. But I've seen Michael race. I've never seen him justify himself in this way that, look, I have a slow car, so I'll just push him off the track.
Yeah,
He never
yeah.
did that. Yeah,
No.
so anyways.
But, Michael Schumacher would do things ruthlessly and not care as well. And I guess there's a reason, obviously people got quite heated and were able to jab at Damon Hill because Damon Hill was on the opposite end of an incident like that.
He
was it 90,
he was
94, 95?
95
was when he in Jerez,
multiple
right?
incidents. Look, I'll be
Oh, no, in
honest, I have
Australia.
no
Sorry,
sympathy.
it was in Adelaide. Yeah.
Silverstone.
No, Adelaide, wasn't it, when he got pushed
There were
into the
multiple
wall,
incidents.
lost, but he
There were
lost by
3
1
incidents.
point. Yeah, but when he lost by 1
okay,
point.
okay. So,
Was
you're talking
Adelaide
about that.
95 or 94? 95, right?
94. That was 94.
94, yeah.
In 95, Damon had, I think, 3 incidents where he just punted Michael off track. Which was
Yeah.
it didn't make sense. But honestly, Damon's head was fried by then. I mean,
Yeah,
the way Michael was getting the better of him was a bit too much.
yeah.
And honestly, I don't have too much of sympathy or favor for Damon because, look, I've seen
I've
his
a little bit
punditry.
of I've a little bit of bias and respect for Damon Hill, and I'll explain to people why really quickly. And sorry to interrupt you.
Go for it.
My first recorded memory of Formula One, the first time I remember it, was when I was 7 years old, and I remember my dad and my granddad were watching it, and I remember hearing, "I know I've got a lump in my throat," and they were like, "Jesus, yeah, well done!"
96.
Like, and everyone was really happy about it because Damon Hill's Damon Hill's uncle or something knew my granddad somehow, or there's some weird connection there. I don't know how. Like, we lived in Ireland, so we're not far from England, so they're small countries, But yeah, they were all obviously massively for Hill, and I just remember them being like, "Wow!" and then I've got a lump in my throat as he came over the line. So I have a little bit of kind of like, I like Damon, just because it's an old memory. So yeah. So if I'm biased towards Damon, that's probably why, not because of things he says or does. So yeah,
Because, the thing is, he comes out and he says that you're not supposed to drive or race by driving your rivals off track. And
which I
I
agree
don't
with.
think-
In fairness,
again, you should, but Lewis Hamilton to 2015, I can count at least 4 or 5 races where he did that to Rosberg and everyone kept them out shut.
yeah.
So maybe be a bit more consistent and things would
Yes.
be fine, right?
Yeah.
If he spoke up then I don't think anyone would have any issue, but he does not. And I think the most egregious was the 2015 USGP where Lewis basically pushes both of them off track, gets nothing. There's radio silence at Sky, and you just know that any other driver, and it's
If
I
it
mean, they are
even had
not
it just been
keeping
the other
them
way
on shut.
around, if Rosberg
Yeah.
had done it to Hamilton, they'd be all over it. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And that's just why I don't really give them that much of a slack, be it Hill,
Yeah.
Brundle, or any of the entire thing. They are biased. Everyone knows they're biased, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, calling time on the entire Max thing. I mean, let's expand a bit on the Lando McLaren situation here, because I think it needs explaining, and it's probably something where I think it's a bit unfair the way the whole thing has been going on. But I also think that it's probably because your algorithm and mine is probably filled with a lot of Max Verstappen fans.
yeah.
It could be playing a role. So I think first things first, I don't think Lando Norris or McLaren were ready for the title battle.
No,
And I think there is, at least in terms of mindset, there needs to be a major change. Whether that comes or not, I don't know. but I think there's, in terms of ruthlessness, they're lacking, and that's just
Look, the simple way to put this for anyone talking about, like, this is again another reason why, like, we've just talked about Verstappen, how high level he is, right? And this is another reason why I just consistently give Norris slack when I think a lot of people don't. Maybe again it is just our algorithms, but if you took, like, forget about, I'm not taking Norris's mistakes out. If I just take the team mistakes out, nothing more. So every mistake that Norris did to cost him points, I leave in. They would now be on, even after Brazil, it would be a 19-point deficit to Max. So, I mean, that's how close it would be if McLaren got everything right, like Red Bull have been doing. That is how close it would be. They would have been going into this race weekend 1 point. It would have been 1 point off of Max, right? Yeah. If you take out all of McLaren's failures and, you know, giving points away and all these different things. So, McLaren, I think, take most of the blame. The problem is, as like, Norris does need some of the blame, but I've been saying this for a while. I think this was a season where they just needed to learn how to win, you know. And we do need to give them a little bit of credit as well in the fact that, which again I know Max fans will be annoyed at, they didn't have a car to fight for a championship with until kind of Miami, and by that stage Verstappen had already won 7 races, so he had a massive lead going into that. And then they failed to take it.
He won 5 races, I think, by then.
Was it 5 races? I thought he won 7 I thought this was his 8th win this season. Maybe
but after Miami, he also won Imola.
Oh, he won Imola. And 5 races by that point. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. So 5, but the point is, they weren't expecting to be in a title fight this year. And I think a lot of the criticism I have for McLaren comes from the fact that they should have immediately, because, right, to turn the tables here, if Red Bull started this season and McLaren were started as kind of the Red Bull and Norris had won 5 races, right, you know that as soon as Miami hit and they had a car where they even though they won that with some luck from the safety car, they would have said, right, we've got a car that can fight here, and they would have said, let's go for this title, and we're going to put everything behind this now. McLaren, even by Monza, we're still going, we're not really sure if this is a title fight yet. So, you know, Red Bull wouldn't have done that. Red Bull would have said, no, this is a title fight from the moment we have a car. Who's the driver ahead? Okay, it's Norris. Piastri, we're going to give Norris favoritism, but if you can genuinely catch him, we'll swing the tables. But for right now, we want to win both championships. And by not having that mindset, they just gave away so many points because they were focused on other drivers, silly mistakes. So, does Norris have a part to blame in losing this? Obviously, he made some mistakes. He gave away a good few points as well. He probably gave away, I would say, if you wanted to be really critical of him, probably 20 points at certain instances, I think, over the course of the season. I think is a fair one.
Go back and check.
I'd need to go through
there is
bit
more.
by bit.
I think there's more.
Yeah, like Austria technically wasn't his fault.
I don't think Austria is his fault at all.
No, Austria technically wasn't his fault, but I think, you know, could he have played it differently if he really wanted to? Sure, you know, and those are situations where, even though it wasn't his fault, would a Lewis Hamilton or Leclerc put themselves in that situation? Probably not.
I think we also saw this thing we saw it in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
When Leclerc and Max were battling. You just knew Leclerc knew how to race Max. It was so obvious.
Yes.
And that's what I've been saying for far too long. Even against Ocon, in the first 2 laps, Ocon knew where to place the car against Max. Yeah. And they've been doing this since they were kids. Lando has not been there, so still some catching up to do.
So look, I think I've said it though, this triple header, for me, I've seen a different Lando. Like, you know, they're just a completely different Lando. And I think unfortunately, like 2009 and, you know, for Red Bull and Vettel, you need to go through this period, this phase of everything's not perfect. Like, Vettel needed to be battle hardened a little bit. Red Bull needed to be battle hardened. In fairness, Vettel also was it continued on in 2010 as well. You know, like he didn't lead that championship at any point until the last race, as far as I remember. So McLaren should probably be given some slack too, because they haven't been in this position ever realistically.
I don't think I can, because I think I think Andrea Stella deserves a lot of blame right now because it's been poor from his side, and I think for a long time we've said that Zach Brown is the one who's you know, being the person who's handling everything, but I just
Yeah.
think it's Stella as well because hearing him after the sprint, I don't think that's the right approach. I just don't think you 2010 German Grand Prix, Alonso pretty much, and Alonso's race engineer was Andrea Stella at the time, and he said, I want the position, and he was ruthless about it. And Stella witnessed the whole thing, and we saw ultimately Alonso going to the last race of the season in the lead. And Stella has been there even during the Schumacher days. He knows how to look. If you've been through that culture, you should be aware. I think these are things that are basically imbibed in
Do you,
you. What have
do
you
you not
learned?
think though do you not think though that a lot of this is down to pressure from the top? Because I feel like if he, like earlier in the season, he would have made team orders very quickly without thinking about it. But I think there's an internal culture there that's been set by Zach, and I think that's where a lot of the criticism of Zach comes from. You know, where
It
it's more
could be.
about it's more about the finances and sponsorship than it is about the actual, winning on track.
I
You
doubt
know.
that is the case, honestly. I don't think it should be, and I don't think there's any reason to because look, McLaren is not short of money. They're
No,
Bahraini
not
owners,
anymore.
by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
there's no such thing as shortage of money for them. The only thing that what are you fighting for? I mean, no one at 2008 Ferrari won the constructors championship.
No one
No one gives a
remembers that.
fuck. No
No,
one gives a fuck. And
no.
that's just the whole thing. And this season again, more than likely that McLaren will win the constructors if they don't screw up even further. But
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
thing is, no one will remember that. Drivers' Championship is the one. 2021, Mercedes
Yeah.
won the Constructors' Championship, did it
Nobody
a
talks
record
about it.
8 times. No one gives a fat fuck. So that's the whole thing. And somehow I think it's just the misplaced priorities. And look, at some point in time, I think again Zach deserves credit. He deserves blame as well. Cause look, Zach joined the team in 2017, 2018, roughly like that. So it's been 7 years, and he's turned the team from being a complete joke
Yeah.
with Alonso basically throwing his toys out of the pram. In 7 years, this team is winning the championship. So there's a lot of good that he's done. But I think for Stella just to be hamstrung being a team principal, I'm finding it hard to buy it because
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
right at some point you have to question what if you are hamstrung as a team principal, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
In fairness, he has done a very good job as well compared to Seidel before him, obviously. Like,
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I don't know. I don't know how Seidel would have actually managed this thing because we never got to see that side of him. What we saw
yeah.
was the 2021 Italian GP where he was very firm on the radio and told Lando to back off
Yeah.
when Daniel was winning the race. So he's done that kind of thing. I don't know. I think we lost a lot. We lost a great talent in Andreas Seidel because of the way how he managed the whole thing. And
Yeah,
here we are
maybe
right now. I
maybe
don't know. It's
maybe
just
maybe Seidel would have been maybe Seidel just proved the wrong person to get them there, but maybe would have been the right person in the situation, you know?
could be.
Because if
Yeah.
we look at Sauber as well, obviously that it didn't go great. So
Yeah.
maybe he's just not the right person to build up. It's like we've had this conversation before as well, haven't we? Where we said that if Ferrari had the optimal situation, it would be Binotto on one side and Fred on the other, and you would have had this perfect team. Maybe that's what they needed. But I think
Yeah.
next year is going to be the interesting one because here's the thing. I expect Oscar to be a lot closer, but I'm still not sure. Like maybe Lando's unlocked another level now, or maybe Oscar has just kind of not been 100% on it because he's kind of not, he knows the title fight's not on him or whatever, but Oscar's performances in the last few races haven't been Like everyone, I think I warned about this earlier on. Everyone was seeing Piastri's kind of curve go like this. And I kept saying, this will flatten. Like it always flattens. It can't go like that forever. So the real question is, does it flatten before or after he gets to Lando's level? And I think for the moment, it's still before. There are certain things in his racecraft that are better than Norris's. And I think Norris could learn a thing or two. But I think if you're talking about an overall driver, he's still not quite there. But it's going to be interesting next year because if Piastri is there off the boat, and McLaren do have the fastest car, they're going to need to make the call a lot quicker than they did this year, because we've seen what happens if you have two top drivers fighting for a championship, unless you've got an absolute out-and-out dominant, like one of your drivers will win regardless of what happens.
But is it a cultural paralysis?
I think, that's where I think Zach deserves some blame for that, because I think Zach's mode of turning the team around has also been a lot on kind of making this marketing machine, right? And if you're this marketing machine, you don't want one driver to get preference all the time. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't look good.
But you look at the way the McLaren IndyCar team is managed, it's entirely Pato Award.
Mm-hmm.
It might change a bit next season because Christian Lundgaard is a talent that is joining McLaren as well. But you don't see the McLaren F1 replica in IndyCar, in a sense that the team is competitive. It's very good. It almost won the Indy 500, I think second or third time. It was on the last corner he lost to Newgarden. The problem for me is, I think what McLaren is struggling with right now, and even I think what Lando is struggling with right now is, and I think I talked about it earlier, championships are won on small moments. Every time you're losing a race start, he's done it far too many times now.
Yeah.
And again, we can continue talking about mitigating factors, this, that, whatever.
Yeah.
At some point you have to if there's a Max Verstappen leading the race, I do not expect him to lose the lead. I just do not.
No, 100% not. No.
And even from that point,
even Piastri. If Piastri starts on pole, I know he's going to stay there.
Yeah.
You know.
He did that, and then the restarts, he lost position to, I think, Leclerc, then Russell. So that's maybe again a loss of head or whatever. At some point you have to sit down and think that maybe it's not the complete package. If he has the right car, which is, if McLaren has a car similar to what they had this season, and Red Bull is in the position that it is right now, I think McLaren wins the championship next season. But I think it would be foolish to assume that this would be the case, because we don't know what Ferrari is going to produce. We have no idea what a Mercedes will do. I mean, again, we can say that maybe it won't be great, but yeah.
And I mean, to be honest, I think they're going to need a bit of a lead as well, because look, realistically, there's only if they had equal cars next year, right? Say Max Verstappen and whoever else had equal cars. There's actually only one driver I think would actually bring it down to the last race, and at the moment that's Leclerc. Like, to be honest,
but not with Ferrari.
No. What I'm saying though is, if you had equal cars, like let's just
equal everything. I want to say car, the team as well.
Team and everything. Equal everything. Everything going right, making all the right strategy calls. If we're just going down to driver performance and nothing else, the only person I think could beat Verstappen is Leclerc. Yeah. I think Leclerc is the only one right now who is the absolute out and out complete package, and I think, like, I know Hamilton should be there, but I feel like something's dropped off with Hamilton. Maybe the new team will refresh him, but we see this with drivers; it drops off over time. Alonso's a weird one that kind of continuously.
Alonso has not dropped off. It's
Aston
Martin.
Yeah, but Alonso's a very strange case. I can't think of any other driver who consistently has that like there all the time. But I think we'll have to see. Like, people keep saying, if Hamilton has the right car, but I'm like, yeah, but like that's why Verstappen for me is a better driver, because Verstappen will just maximize the results all the time, regardless of what car he has.
For a long time this season.
But
And
even before 2021, he didn't have the right car, and he still
yeah,
would try and maximize every weekend. You
yeah,
know, like he was young, he would make mistakes, frustrated, all these things. Leclerc now is also that type that generally maximizes everything.
yeah,
Like, you know, I feel like Leclerc is now, and I don't even think he was in 2022 or 2023. I think this year it's kind of the final molding has happened for Leclerc. He feels
yeah.
like the complete driver now. And I don't know if Ferrari got on the radio when Max was coming behind him. But
He
because
knew.
visibility was shit, but he
Yeah,
knew where Max was going to go, and he kept covering the inside. I think
yeah.
he very much knows how to play that game. He was covering the inside, knowing, right, I can just do Max's game of pushing him off. You know, like
I just love it when Max comes on the radio and says that he squeezed me off the track.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm buddy.
It's like, well, I mean, you wrote this book, you know, someone else read
Yeah,
it. It's, you know, yeah. Look, I think
yeah.
Norris still has
I'd
a
love
way
to
to
see
go.
I'd love to see a championship battle with. I, I'll be honest.
It,
This season, what I've realized is Ferrari is still not there. That's the
yeah,
verdict that I
here's
get every time.
a question, or not so much a question, but see if you agree on this with me, because I get a little bit frustrated when someone says they're not championship worthy, because for me there are levels on that. You know, like if
I
you're
will
in the
tell you
same
something.
if you're in the
This is
same
something.
car though.
Yeah,
My point is, if you're in the same car, right? If
yeah,
you put Verstappen and Hamilton in the exact same car in 2021, I think Verstappen wins that, right? Okay, we could talk about that all day. Does that mean that Hamilton? I don't think Hamilton is championship worthy. Obviously not. You know, obviously he can win. So, like, I think that there's two different conversations here. I think people think if you say championship worthy, it means you're saying best, and it's like, no, those are two different things.
yeah.
If Norris has the right team and right car, can he win a championship? I think he's shown us this year he absolutely can, right?
Precisely.
If Norris is in a team and a pairing up against a perfect Red Bull and Verstappen, can he win the championship? It's unlikely. It's very, very difficult. But then I would say the same about Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc. I think would be the closest. You know, Piastri, I don't think is there yet. Like most drivers, if it's just on driver performance, I think Verstappen beats pretty much all of them. Leclerc would be closest. Does that mean that all those drivers aren't championship worthy? Obviously not. Like, you know, I've seen that term thrown around so much, and it's like no one
The
really.
the term
Yeah,
that
I
you
know.
are actually looking for is not championship worthy. It's champion material.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I think Norris is championship material. I think he's shown that in in a few races. It's just Verstappen is more consistently championship material, and Red Bull is more consistently championship material than
And
both
we should
McLaren
not forget
and
this
Norris.
thing. Yeah, we should not forget the fact that the role that Red Bull plays. And I think this is something that is always, again, fans will do it. But if you are having a good faith discussion, Vettel outperformed Alonso and Lewis overall if you look at it from 2010 to 2013. Why? Because everything was working perfectly. Lewis did the same from 2014 till 20 whatever. Why? Because everything was working perfectly for him. If a
Yeah,
driver is hamstrung in some way or the other, you are not having a fair battle anyway.
you need to gel
And
that confidence as well.
yeah, and
Those
again, I
drivers
mean, that's why
absolutely believe in their teams.
exactly, and that's why I never get into the whole debate of, Alonso in a Ferrari in 2018 would have won. We don't know because we do not know how Alonso would have reacted to a situation where the car's upgrades don't work. They make the car. I mean, we are looking at it right now, anyways, at Aston Martin, but he's not reacting it that well, right? Anyways, coming back to the championship worthy thing and championship material, I actually replied this to one of the Verstappen fans. So, when you talk about championship worthy, there are a few categories you have to tick. You have to be in the fastest car. You need the team that is best in terms of operations. You need to beat your teammate, and you need to finish the season with the most points. Now, this season, I think Lando ticked two of the four boxes. The operational bit is not there, and I don't think he'll finish with the most points. But the
No.
thing is, look, if you're beating a teammate like Oscar Piastri and doing it handily, I don't know how much Oscar improves next season, but in terms of performance, it's there. It's the intangible things that Lando needs to work on. So if he can or cannot, or if somehow McLaren produces a car that is just a rocket ship next season, that will completely turn the script on, flip the script entirely.
Yeah,
Whether that happens or not, we don't know. But if that happens, it's over. I mean,
if they have the absolute fastest car next year, right, and it's by a margin where they're able to kind of, maybe not 2023, but let's say 2022 even, where they're winning the majority of races over the course of the season, right?
Yeah.
Then I think in that case Norris wins a title, because unless Oscar can really step up, then on more occasions Norris will just be the faster driver, and it won't matter if he, Piastri will get maybe a better start and get ahead of him, but Norris over the course of the race will be the faster driver and take him over, or overtake him. And there'll be certain days where it'll go Piastri's way, and there'll be days where it's not. Piastri, I've noticed that a lot of the people who were talking only a few races ago about how Piastri is clearly the faster driver have gone really quiet about that since.
And it's been Piastri helped him out in the sprint this weekend.
Yeah.
But that's it, right? I think other than that, he's not really been close.
And it's where McLaren, if they get the car next year, need to make the decision quickly, because they, as Norris said, he said it over the radio, and I don't know how much, they didn't want to go into detail obviously, but he said, we talked about this before the race, and Piastri started and immediately blocked him off from going down the inside.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, right, well, guys, it doesn't matter how much you talk about this next year. You're going to be in a real problematic situation, because clearly the team game is not going to be played here. And, Norris in Hungary took a long time to give it back. And I understand why, I do understand why. Yeah. But at the same time, if they're in a title fight next year, Norris, after Hungary and seeing all the problems they had after that, is not going to give it back again. That's not going to happen again. Because what they did was they said, you're going to need Piastri if there's a title fight. A title fight came up, and then look how difficult it was to pass, even in the sprint. Look at the way they played that. Norris is not going to have faith in the team to play for him next year. So they're going to have a real problem on their hands if they don't make a decision quickly. And even if they do, they're going to have a real problem on their hands, because Oscar's probably not going to accept it very quickly either, which is fair. He's a very good driver. But I think that could be their hindrance next year.
I think for me, again, it's just until they do it on the track and prove it, it's very hard for me to make any assertive conclusion in any direction. I don't know Oscar is going to be better next season. I want to see it first. I don't know Lando would make the improvements needed to actually ultimately be a better title contender next season. I need to see it first.
Yeah,
it's very easy, sit down and basically write stuff like he's the worst championship contender since Felipe Massa in 2008. I could not laugh more at that kind of comments, because first of all, Felipe Massa, rightful winner in 2008. So if he's the worst contender, what does it make Lewis? Secondly, he was never supposed to fight for the title this season. Until he went to Miami, or maybe even Imola, I don't think he even thought he was going to be fighting for the title this season.
No.
I think even in the summer break, he did not think he would be fighting for the title. It
was always a long shot anyway.
Yeah.
Even coming into this weekend, it was a tall order. We said in the last podcast, it could happen if things go really wrong for Red Bull.
Yeah.
But things needed to go really wrong for Red Bull, and they didn't. And Max performed. And I don't know. I think what Norris needs to do now, realistically, now that the title fight is actually over, is he needs to go and maximize the next 3 races and just forget about this year. Win them if possible. Obviously, depending if the car can do it in Vegas, but in the other 2,
it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
It would be there and thereabouts. This is what Rosberg did in 2015.
Yeah.
He went on a run of 3 consecutive wins, and what he did was he basically built a momentum that he took with him into the next season.
That's what he needs to do. Norris needs to go and absolutely just go on a charge for the next 3 races.
Yeah.
Get pole position, start off the line. If it's him and Piastri alongside, he needs to treat Piastri as if it's Verstappen and just run over him out and get along and just, just go, I am going to win at all costs from now on, and prove to himself he can do it, because he's an incredibly quick driver. Like you said, it's the intangible things, and I think he needs to do that for himself now. Yeah. Because if he doesn't, it doesn't matter if we question it. If he's questioning himself going into 2025, that could be game over. Like that. These. How many drivers have not won a title and then the car goes away for a few years and that's it, game over. Like look at Daniel Ricciardo. Look how quickly people went from he is a future world champion to that guy doesn't deserve to be in a Toro Rosso.
Formula One.
Yeah. Look how.
2020 and 2021. That's just, and I think it will be a test of his mental strength as well, because 2024, if he treats it well, it could be the year that helps him become something big. And it could be a year that basically sees his teammate take over. Either things could happen. I mean, Oscar, I picked Oscar to actually outscore Lando this season. That was my prediction at the start of the year. So again, that didn't really work out.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this is the point. It's on him. And I've said it far too many times. He should talk to Nico Rosberg a lot. That is the person he needs to talk to, because in terms of mental strength, the kind of mental strength he needed to accumulate to beat Lewis, that still counts. And a lot will come down to that.
I think just to clarify as well, I think both of us agree, because there'll probably be some people in the comments who think, oh, these guys think Oscar Piastri is not a great driver. The point is not that Oscar Piastri is an incredible driver, and that's why I give Norris a lot of credit, because beating Piastri is not an easy task.
If anyone thinks that we think Oscar is a bad driver or not a great driver, we rated the drivers just a few weeks back. We'll link the video as well in the description. You can see where we added Oscar, and that should tell you everything.
Yeah.
Just to wrap the whole thing up with the whole Max and Lando thing, where do you think the friendship goes from here? Because I think that's very, it's an understated thing, but I think
it makes
things
a difference.
Have soured a lot.
Yeah.
And they've soured since Max became Mad Max in Austin. I think that's when things just started going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, like I think what happened was in Austin, you could tell that Norris wasn't happy about it, and they had the interesting part as well was, I don't know whether it was this weekend or last weekend, I can't remember now, but basically I heard Norris go, we haven't spoken about it, and they usually like fly together all the time, So I think probably not, and to be honest, maybe it's for the best, because I think you do need to kind of treat, like, it's hard to compartmentalize that. And that's another thing where Verstappen is brilliant. Verstappen can be friends with them outside the car, get in and go, I don't care, I'm running you over if I have to. Like, this is the mentality he has. And it's something I think Daniel Ricciardo used to be brilliant at as well. Daniel, funny, nice guy off track. And then it's like in the car, a monster, just brilliant.
I miss peak Daniel Ricciardo.
So do I so much.
What he did on track.
Put him in Perez's car, please. Just because there's a 2% chance we might get him back. Just do it. Even for that 2% chance, put him in. But Norris, I think Norris shouldn't be friends with him. Norris shouldn't be friends with him until he wins a title, because I think it's just, there's no upside to it for Norris right now. There's really not. It's just giving Verstappen an opportunity to play mind games.
What do you want, basically? What do you want to do in your career? And that's what it comes down to, how hungry you are. And I think after Austria, Max was on the back foot. I think he knew he made a mistake. He won't admit it, obviously.
No.
But I think he knew, and that's why he reached out to Lando. But I think in Austin, and since then it's become a bit more of a case where he didn't, he just flipped the switch where everything is just focused on the championship and now you have to win. And I think that's where Lando probably was a bit caught off guard at Austin. But I don't know. I don't know how he approaches this thing, but if he's going to be friends with Max, then he has to be. I think he has to be willing to be a bastard on track,
Yeah.
and he's not. I think that's not the style of racing that Lando has, anyways. I mean, I have not seen
No.
him be an asshole on track. I mean, I've seen Russell be one. I've seen Leclerc be one. Max does it anyways, but I have not seen Lando be that. So, who knows? Look, he has a lot of things going for him in terms of pace, performance, and also adaptability. He's shown that. It's just these intangibles, and if he does not, and again, one of the biggest thing is winning the small battles.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that matter. And I think, and I was actually thinking back to the 2021 title battle between Lewis and Max. These small battles made a lot of difference.
Yeah.
In in the first race, Bahrain, Lewis won. It was a very tiny thing, a very, very minute advantage. Then you had Imola where Max did that. It went back and forth because both drivers were not giving each other an inch.
Yeah.
And again, it was a case of a well-oiled machine in Mercedes and Lewis, who were basically winning for a decade now. And another case was Max, who had a brilliant strategic unit and basically himself a talent that is rare in Formula One.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah,
was what actually went against each other. We had a bit of a mismatch this season, and I think that's why we have the result that we have right now.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let's talk about the fans.
Sure.
Should we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, before we do that, I think there's one thing we should touch on, and that's the whole bias allegations that Max threw out. And there's something. I think there are two sides to it. There's one thing that Max got right, and then there's the other side where I think he was horribly wrong, and I think maybe he was playing the political game on that front. First, where he was correct, and the part where he was correct was with the way he targeted the British media, and I think they deserve it. I think it's high time they got called out for it. It started with Adrian Newey, who basically pointed it out. And I think right now we are in a situation where, again, Dutch media is similar partisanship for Max, but it's not a global outlet.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of difference. And what we are seeing right now is Max basically being, look, gloves are off. I'm going to speak my mind, and I'm going to call out your bias. That's what he was doing. And even in the press conference where he pointed it out, with no British media was present, which was a bit of a surprise. But I think Scott Mitchell-Mom and I think Will Buxton also pointed out that this happens sometimes because you have to rush through between either the press conference or the driver scrum.
Yeah.
And sometimes you miss one or the other.
Yeah,
Tends to happen. But
I'm sure there's some sort of reason for it. Like I'm sure the whole British media didn't go, "Fuck Max, we're out of here." Like I'm sure maybe some did, but not all of them did. Like, to be fair to the guys from the race, like as much as there can be bias there, like Scott Mitchell-Mam and Ed Straw aren't like Max haters. They constantly talk about how brilliant he is. So it's like, I don't buy that all British media went, "Fuck this, we're out of here." Norris lost the title. Like, come on.
I think the usual suspects are Autosport, Sky Sports. To an extent, you see the other Mirror probably, but it's not as big a thing in F1 circles. It tends to be
it's
these
a tabloid basically as well.
Yeah,
so.
it's precisely that. And
it's just quickly point out something. As far as I remember, Sky is still property, or was it sold of News Corp? So originally it was a Rupert Murdoch owned
it's a Rupert Murdoch thing.
Yeah, so like
it still is.
You need to bear in mind that the culture of a place like that, regardless of whether it's politics or sport, they build it on being tribal from the start. They did it with politics, with Fox. So even when it's sport, the idea is pick a side and fight for it. That's what you're doing here. It's not so much news and coverage. It's like, this is what we are.
It's nationalistic, basically.
Yes. So
right-winged,
even if
nationalistic, that's your editorial line. Stick to it.
So you're going to get that in the background, even if all of the journalists aren't that way. there's going to be that certain undercurrent of it that will bubble up all the time. So
Yeah,
I kind of, again, I've talked about this before. As much as I appreciate it's there, I've kind of given up on caring about it. If that makes sense. I'm just like,
yeah.
I can't.
I think we did. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think Max maybe took it overboard, but his comments. Look, if he's
It was funny, in fairness.
I mean, what he did with in the press conference was hilarious, and I think he, after the kind of weekend that he'd put together, he deserved to do that.
Yeah,
and he should do that. Look, for me, the worry is when a Damon Hill comes out and says something like this, that a driver shouldn't push the other driver off, and then he keeps his mouth shut when it comes to a British driver. I tend to not. Those comments don't have the credibility that usually maybe a different pundit would. And that's why I tend not to really take the Sky Sports discourse seriously. Other people do. And again, I understand and I'm completely fine with him targeting the British media. It deserves to be done.
Yeah.
Because again, one of the biggest thing is in the British Grand Prix this season, when it was in Silverstone, the Aston Martin, I don't know what was it was a tour or something that they had. It was for the new facilities. It was entirely British media. That's it. And that pisses you off because what it means is, first of all, almost all the facilities are in Britain. And then almost all the media that gets invited to all this, it's going to be British. And then you know that the people that are going to be part of the entire discourse in terms of who's going to write, what's going to be written, again, it's going to be British. So it tends to hurt the overall picture that is actually being put out.
Yeah.
That's where things get it gets a bit frustrating as well for someone who's actually even trying to break into the industry. But
you know who'll fix it, right?
Who?
Donald Trump. That's a discussion for tomorrow.
That's yeah. Oh,
and I don't believe that, by the way, just to be very clear.
Obviously. He'll fix everything.
Yeah.
Everything. It wouldn't be like this if I was the president.
He'll make Formula One great again.
Yeah. I don't want that piece of shit anyway. Anywhere close
you know who
to Formula
we need
1.
back, honestly, though, is Bernie Ecclestone. But let's move on.
We need him back. We do.
We've already got Flavio. Just get Bernie. Sorted.
Yeah. Max is anyways dead. But anyways, enough with the media thing. And now I think for me the more important thing, because I think this was entirely political from him, and this was entirely I understand why he did that, but the way he went after the stewards for the moves that he'd done, either it was paranoia or either he was just playing the game. Either ways, he was wrong. I do not think it makes any sense to question a Tim Mayer who's a former a McLaren founder's son or something, somehow related to him, and Johnny Herbert. Again, Johnny Herbert has his issues, he has his quirks, but then take it with the FIA. If you're going to question someone's integrity, it's borderline incorrect.
You need to prove
similar
it.
to the Derek Warwick thing, where Derek Warwick has a fucking Honda dealership and then you're making it about this. I'm not a huge fan of something like that, and I think that rubbed me the wrong way.
It's a bad idea because realistically it only has downside, but then Max did learn chess from fucking Jos Verstappen, so let's be honest here, he only knows how to fucking pick downside. By the way, for anyone watching, I'm not a huge fan of Jos Verstappen. Massive Max fan, not Jos. I just think it only has downside, like criticizing it publicly. You're right, go to the FIA, play the game if you want, but criticizing it publicly, like, do you really think that, like, if you say Johnny Herbert's biased and always picks British, do you think the response to that from Johnny Herbert is, well, I better not give him a big penalty because he'll think I'm British biased? His response to that is going to be, what's the maximum penalty? Like, you know, that can only have downside. Should this be... Look, first things first. The one thing I agree with is we need full-time paid stewards who we can figure out a way to make sure that these obvious biases don't exist.
Yeah.
However, until and if that happens, for me, it's a situation of you can talk about bias all you want, but we can only judge by the actual evidence on display here.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if we go back to Mexico again, people will say, oh, we got 5 seconds instead of 10, so they're clearly because they're biased or whatever. My argument to that would be, if those guys were biased, then why didn't Max get a fucking drive-through penalty for the second incident? Because there was tons of justification for turn 7 to go, you know what? Drive-through. Forced the driver off track, took advantage, caused a collision.
Dangerous driving.
Easily could have been a drive-through penalty plus the 10 seconds for the last one. So for me, it's okay, you can call bias all you want, but realistically, you need evidence. Like, there has to be evidence of it, you know? And in Austin, like, Lando only got a 5 second. They're like, oh, the British bias. Derek Warwick was there. So why is everyone not going, why didn't Lando get an extra penalty when it was, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but at that moment, we had the morons from the team LH and everyone. The Derek Warwick was there. That's why Lando got a penalty and Max didn't. And it's just, dude, get your head in the game. If you're, and again, you know, why are you even turning up? If you think the entire system is rigged,
probably saw my tweet. Did you?
Yeah. Like,
just,
why are you even there?
If you think the game is rigged, why watch?
And the thing is, and again, maybe I think Max was playing the game. I think if deep down he sits and looks back at those incidents, even he would say, yeah, I deserved both of those penalties. But he's just playing the game.
Of course,
and I just think what he's done is, and I think the tweet by, it was Lawrence Edmondson or someone who works with ESPN F1, and he said that, and he said it after Mexico, where I think we talked about it last time as well, where he said that I can't believe that the British bias made Max make these mistakes or do these kind of things. I think that's where it becomes a joke. If the race in Brazil had gone any other way, if suppose Max had a crash and he crashed out or something happened, the British bias thing becomes a joke.
Yeah.
And that's where the entire movement goes to shit. Because what we have is, he raised a great point when it comes to the media, and media should be called out. It's entirely biased. There's just no way to even, you can't really slice it in any other way. But when it comes to the stewards, and again, a lot of Max fans, well, they went overboard when it comes to a lot of DMs that I received throughout the weekend. I've explained each and everything what happened, and I don't think there's any bias. I'm being very honest.
No.
Zero bias. Every penalty deserved. Every VSC timing, sure, it could be 5 seconds earlier, later. That's par for the course.
It's incompetence, not bias, though. At worst, it's incompetence. Like, okay, look, here's the thing for me is, the reason I stopped arguing with people on Twitter about it, to be honest, with any of these, is because I realized these people don't even know how the rules work. So it's a pointless argument, because the amount of people, when I pointed out anything to do with it, that said, oh no, it's Johnny Herbert in the steward's office, not realizing that Johnny Herbert has nothing to do with those decisions. Like, clearly don't watch or pay attention or understand anything about how it works, because there's a reason why you hear Crofty or whoever you're listening to on commentary say, that's been noted and sent to the stewards. Until it's sent to the stewards have nothing to do with it. So all these people who are going, oh, look, Johnny Herbert with the bias with the VSC. And it's like, Johnny Herbert doesn't call the VSC. It's just...
It so quickly turned from Johnny Herbert being biased to the FIA steward being biased, to the FIA race director being biased. Let's talk about
this. Is why I stopped arguing. Before you go on this rant, I know you're going to go on this rant, so just before. That's why I stopped arguing, because if you don't know the difference, right? Okay, let me put it one way real quick. If you don't know the difference, and then I say it was the race director, and your response to that isn't, oh, shit, I thought it was Johnny Herbert. Great, didn't realise that. If your response is, oh, well, the race director is obviously biased then, for me, it's like, oh, well, this is a pointless argument, because you don't care about facts. You've just got an opinion. And it's a waste of time. Sorry, go ahead with your rant, because I know you've...
I mean, it's not a rant. I mean, I keep it very civil most of the time.
Most of the time,
yeah. I mean, let's just talk about this whole thing, right? First of all, the VSC timing during the sprint race. And, I wrote an entire explanation so that if people are willing for good faith F1 discourse, they look at it and they understand how everything works. I mean, I got more DMs with some nonsensical stuff than even the comments in this case, which was hilarious. So, anyways, let's talk about it then. First of all, the Nico Hulkenberg thing. Until Nico stopped the car, he was trying to either find the correct position so that he can either park the car closer to the barriers so that it can be just easily lifted off and you only have a double waved yellow. Or the second case was, if he's not able to do that, he was trying to just, if the car basically ultimately catches some power or ultimately it restarts, he'll drag it to the pits. Neither happened. He had to stop the car and he had to step out. The moment he stopped the car and to the moment we had the VSC, there was around a 45-second lag. 45? Sorry, 30-second lag.
Yeah.
Now that's the lead time that we had in this case. You compare that with a standard stuff.
While there's double waved. No, just while there's double waved yellows out as well. So I think people were like, people were going, oh, it's so dangerous. There's people coming through there. It's like the drivers still have to slow down while there's double waved yellows. It's not like they're blasting past each other, overtaking through double waved yellows. So the VSE and double waved yellows, like there is a difference, but it's not like they're racing each other through there. Sorry, because people don't seem to understand that.
And for this, I'll point to one very significant thing that happened this season in the Chinese Grand Prix with Valtteri Bottas. Just before the straight, in Shanghai, there is this curve that you have to actually take, and then you take the long straight. Before that, there is a mini straight. At the end of the mini straight, Bottas's Sabre broke down, and he was standing there, basically getting out of the car for around 45 to 50 seconds. During that entire sequence, there was no safety car, no VSC, nothing, just double waved yellows. Did we have any outrage?
I don't even
about
remember
safety. Precisely. That's the thing. No outrage, nothing. For around 45 to 50 seconds, nothing. Again, no. And throughout all of that, did anyone benefit or lose? It happens. You have to understand this thing that sometimes this is how the dice rolls. And now I'll point to probably a more significant one. The race in Canada. Logan Sargent crashes I actually have it written, at 45 minutes. The safety car comes out at 45. So that's a 45-second lag. And it comes out at the very moment when Lando crosses the pits. So he cannot pit. Every other driver can. Now, is that British bias? Is there any... Because at that very moment, if the safety car had come even 2 to 3 seconds earlier, Lando could have just got into the pits, changed the tires, come out again in the lead. He did not. He lost the lead and ultimately he lost the race. Was there British bias? Are we talking about it in the same manner as we're talking right now? We're not. And that should tell you everything. The point is, this weekend, first of all, it became ugly. I mean, the kind of abuse I've seen from the people who were very cordial with me, it's just off the charts. All of the Max Verstappen fans, because they can't see the sport from any other lens than Pro Max. I'll be honest right now. And the thing is, just look at this weekend's race. I mean, if let's assume, as soon as you had the situation where it was raining like anything, when Lando and George were in the lead, why did they not bring this? They could have easily brought the safety car out at that very moment, and it could have worked in the favor of those guys, right? At the same time, they could have extended the VSC when both of them were pitting. They entered the pits, VSC ended, which is basically the worst possible time. If they wanted to have a British bias, that was the perfect time for them to have it. It wasn't there. So is it British bias only when things don't work your way?
Yes.
That's what it is. That's entirely what it is. And it's just, it gets on my nerves because, look, if the good faith discussion is done, I'm not going to interact with those nonsense. I reached that point this weekend because I just mute. You're a moron, mute.
I did
You're
an idiot,
same,
basically. Mute. I did the same with a lot of people who just, as soon as I realized it was like, right, you don't even know how the stewarding system works. And that's fine if you don't know, because there's a lot of new fans, a lot of casual fans, like actual casual fans. So, like that's fine if you don't understand that. But as soon as you learn that, if you were to then go, oh, I didn't realize that. Interesting. Like, fine, we can have a conversation. But if your response to that is, oh, well, then obviously Niels Wittich is British biased as well. Yes, the Germans, famously British biased,
Yours sounded like British biased. Like, go fuck yourself. I actually hate you saying go fuck yourself. I can't even fuck with you right now. That's just...
Like, the thing is, someone pointed out, well, the Germans hate the Dutch. I'm like, right, okay, so we're going to go down this route now. Like, okay, fine. Like, I was like, this is just a pointless conversation. It's like, whatever. Like, the problem I have...
Did someone actually do that?
Yes. The problem with this, and in fairness, I don't think he's wrong either. I think there is like a really...
of course.
But a lot of countries have these things.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, like, I don't know about you. Like, if I'm sitting there, like, judging something, I'm not basing it solely on who my country is. Like, I'm... Like, and I think Niels Wittich isn't either. Like, he's...
I didn't even know he was German until... this past weekend.
As I pointed out to someone, and someone went, I was like, oh yes, that German race director, I'm sure he really wanted to kill a German driver on the side of the road. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this, someone was like, I put his life in danger and all this stuff. And I'm like, yes. I was like, all over British bias. And I was like, yes, I'm sure that German man wanted to kill that other German man on the track. The Germans famously want to kill each other and not other countries. Fuck off. Look, here's the thing for me. We can have a conversation all day about the FIA needing to do better. And I think if you've watched this podcast or my channel in the past when I was running the F1 channel all the time, if you've watched those things, you know that I am not a fan of the FIA. But as I've said consistently over the years, the FIA are incompetent. They're not biased. And I actually don't think they are intelligent enough to be biased, right? That's how poorly I think the FIA do a job. But you've got to look at this from a reasonable, logical point of view. I pointed this out. First of all, the FIA are a French organisation. I don't know if you know about the French and the British, but they're not exactly friends. Like,
we had a double French podium this time, so...
Yes. So, obviously, it's French biased, but they're not exactly friends, right? The French and the British, first of all. And second of all, people kept going, oh, the FIA, they want to do this because they want a title fight. And I realised then as well, not only do people not realise that the race director and the stewards are a different thing and they run different things, they also don't seem to realise that the FIA and FOM are completely separate and that the FIA don't gain anything from a title fight. The FIA are paid a fixed annual fee to lease the commercial rights to FOM, Liberty Media. Liberty Media gain, if there's a title fight, from commercial rights. The FIA don't get an extra single penny if there's a title fight. How?
They do.
It's a fixed annual fee.
It's a part of the overall revenue. There's a part that goes to FIA.
Yes, but it is not. It's done every Concord agreement. It's updated. The actual fee itself is fixed. So if they make extra money,
lease, right? The fee is the lease.
Yeah. So like the point here is they get their fixed fee constantly. So it doesn't. They're not involved directly in the title fight.
The point is not that. The point is that if you're going to turn a blind eye to every decision that goes in your favor, and then you act as if everything that is not going in your favor is basically fixed, stop watching the fucking sport.
This is the key point as well, isn't it? Yeah, this is the key point. If you think that everything is fixed and they choose who they want to win and so on. First of all, they've clearly chosen Max Verstappen to win this year by that logic because,
it's the same nonsense. Honestly, so it's the same fucking nonsense that I heard from Cult Elledge after 2021 that they did not want him to win. They did not want... Why did they wait for 7 fucking years? Since 2014, they waited until he won 7 titles, 100 wins. And then they started, oh no, we cannot let this black guy win. They waited until he became the most successful driver in history. And then we did not want him to win.
And then they became
who
racist.
The fuck are you kidding yourself right now?
Yeah. Then they became racist. Look, the FIA is incompetent. And as I pointed out to people on Twitter before I just gave up, because I was like, this is a pointless endeavor. As I said, if there's any bias in Formula One, that bias directly comes from FOM and the teams. That is the only way to logically look at it, because the people who gain the most from bias are the teams who will win from decisions and Liberty Media who will gain money and attention from controversy.
Yeah.
So in 2021, the decision in Abu Dhabi, and I hate the fact that we have to talk about this fucking race so much,
Seriously.
but the build up to 2021 and the reason why there was that terrible decision at the end that caused my GOAT Lewis Hamilton to lose the championship. No, the reason that happened is because for more than a year, but more so in that year, the teams and FOM had been pushing for a variety of things that put the FIA and specifically the race director under so much pressure that there was basically a lose-lose situation regardless of what he did in that race. And their response to that wasn't to go, shit, we fucked up, we need to fix this and work with the FIA. Their response to that was just go, fire Michael Masi and everything's good. We haven't even changed the regulation in the document. And people will blame the FIA for that. The teams and FOM have to sign off on that. They have to sign. What are they doing? So it's not, so that rule that caused the 2021 issue is still there. And the fans will blame the FIA. I'm sorry, Mercedes sign off on the rules. If Mercedes say no, then there's going to be an issue because Mercedes can get 4 teams to vote with them. If Ferrari aren't happy, they can veto any rule set that the FIA wants to make. Anything. So if there is bias, it is not coming from the FIA. The FIA are incompetent at best, or at worst. And I think they are incompetent in a lot of things.
At best.
Yes, at best they are incompetent.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing. And the whole incident with the Hulkenberg VSC, I think it showed very, very simple thing. Fans sleepwalk throughout the Formula 1 seasons until it becomes very high stake and when their driver is involved in a title fight. Before that, everyone is sleeping. Because I pointed out 3 or 4 incidents this season which basically had the same benchmark time. 45 seconds. That is what happened with almost all of them. But no. And I think at some point in time, if you are so fucking desperate to try to find some fault, you'll find it. It's just
I started giving up after Austin because I had the conversation at Austin where I was like, I didn't even say Max. I said Max played that perfectly in Austin, but I said this rule is stupid. We had a big conversation about it. And instead of people going, yeah, that rule is stupid, they were like, oh, why is it 10 seconds instead of 5? So it's like, people don't actually care about the rules at all. Everyone in Austin was told it would be 10 seconds.
Exactly. And something happened today, by the way. Friend of the show, Sai, he shared a video clip. It's a reel on Instagram which has, I think, 200,000 likes. And the video is from Lando Norris. Earlier this season in Saudi GP, where Lando had a false start and then he just started the race. Yeah. And he wasn't penalized because it was very minuscule and the sensors did not go off.
Yeah.
So, and that video is doing the rounds that is also British bias. Why? Because they showed that one and they showed another one with Daniel Ricciardo having that and Daniel Ricciardo getting penalized. Even though the reason is officially clarified by the FIA. The problem is, if you are so desperate to find British bias, you're going to find it.
Yeah.
And look, I've been the champion of, we have British bias in the media, and I'll continue to say that. But honestly, what I saw this weekend, it just pissed me off because, look, good faith discussion is over. And it's not only your typical engagement, hungry Max Verstappen fan accounts. I mean, we all know which they are. But other accounts as well. I mean, Daniel Vellante, he's very smart usually in terms of these things. But the way he was questioning it, I didn't really like it because I thought you're just stoking the fire even more. Because at that moment, look, you need someone to be the voice of the reason to actually explain stuff to basically a moronic crowd. And that's where I actually found myself. And there were a lot of people that were just part of it. They were unacceptable, this, that. But no, you have to go back and you have to look at the similar incidents. And FIA funnily was consistent. And when you see it being consistent and you not raising a voice then and raising a voice now, I'm sorry, but somewhere you're the one who's in the wrong place.
Yeah. You can't... like I said, look, the FIA is incompetent, I'll give that. But like, just this... I realized this weekend, I was like, I'm just going to give up arguing. I'll just rant on the podcast instead of arguing on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time. Like this was just the perfect example of people just not caring about the facts. Because as soon as you're blaming Johnny Herbert for a VSE, I don't like Johnny Herbert. I think he's a bit of a tool, but he clearly, like, from a logical standpoint, he had nothing to do with the VSE. Like, nothing. Unless they were like, we're going to call a VSE. The VSE decision has been passed to the stewards. There's nothing he can do about that.
It's not only that. I mean, even the safety, it was a red flag in qualifying. You probably slept through that. That caused a lot of uproar. Yeah, that caused a lot of uproar.
I was laughing because I knew how Twitter would react to it.
Yeah, and I gave the entire explanation, explained everything, and then you had abuses, and after a point I was like, man, I'm just going to mute you guys. My entire comments thing was mute, and it was entirely abuses. And then I had it in my DMs, and at that point I just flipped down. I'm like, fuck, block.
Yeah.
If good faith discussion is over, and I'm not even going to waste my time on these morons. That's what I think this triple header is actually a big lesson for me, because next season is going to be more intense. And I have slowly started to filter out the kind of morons I'm not going to waste my time on. Yeah. So that is going to be.
I think I'm just going to go back to what I used to do, which was just post and not reply to any comments.
Yeah.
It's the easiest thing. I'll just post what I'm thinking, and people can get angry about it, and I just won't even bother looking.
Yeah, precisely.
Because I would usually use Twitter to jump back in and get into comments just to have a bit of an argument, just for a laugh. But when it's like, it's blatant just stupidity and bias, I'm like, I can't even argue with this. This is pointless. It's just...
I mean, just look at... And there are a lot of these people who idolize these drivers and these fans. Look, you can, but I'm a Max Verstappen fan. I love the way he's actually conducted himself. For me, him actually being in contention in 2021 was a surprise, because the kind of setbacks he had. But if you want me to be a blind supporter, I was a blind supporter for Michael Schumacher, and those days are gone. I'm not in that business, and if you want to unfollow, go ahead. If you want to abuse, you'll get blocked. Seriously, I'm not going to waste my time on that.
You can abuse in the comments, by the way. I don't care about this.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Go ahead and do that.
Go ahead.
I mean, a mutual friend of ours who actually, so even he had the same issues with us earlier in the season when the whole Horner thing flipped off. But anyways, it's neither here nor there. A lot of this. Yeah.
It's just, look, I don't know. I don't... We can have arguments on Twitter, but it's just, if you're just gonna, like, if you just don't care about the logic and you just basically think that, it's just fixed against your driver, then you logically have to think it's fixed against your driver all the time, because you've basically just saying that my driver can't win this because of the decision. And also, if there's bias against Max Verstappen, then why did the VSC, like you said, turn off for McLaren when they went in? Why did they call a red flag for Colapinto? Why didn't they just keep a safety car out? Just move the car slowly. They could have done that. They've done it before. They've done it before. They can bring the cars through the fucking pit lane and just do a safety car. It's been done a ton of times before. So if they really did not want Max to win this race, if that was the goal, they had the tools to do it. No problem. So from now on, if you believe that it's biased against Max, then every time something goes Max's favor, you have to assume they're helping Max to win now. It can't be. That would be a good one way or the other.
F1 discourse, right?
And it's not, and that's the point.
Yeah. It's just become Anyways, moving on from that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the more upbeat things. Lewis Hamilton's weekend.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
I mean, there was something
his end
upbeat.
of. There
was something upbeat, by the way.
Yeah.
The Senna thing.
He
drove the Senna.
Yeah.
That was
in the wet.
I mean, he grew up, and I think I felt for him. As a kid, if there's someone you idolize, I mean, for me, when I grew up, I idolized someone like a Sachin Tendulkar, because almost everyone in India did. But when you do something...
no one outside India even knows who that is, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's all right. Fine by me. The thing is, for him to basically drive the same car that his idol did. Yeah, that's like, one for the bucket list. I mean, I was quite happy for him.
Yeah.
Other than that, oh God.
Yeah, it did not go well. It was great watching him go around in that. The over-the-line radio, there's been some rumors that he's not going to be in the car for the rest of the season now, which I can't see happening. I have heard one or two things, but I can't see it happening.
What have you heard? I mean, if you can tell.
I've heard from someone that there was a conversation that basically Hamilton is kind of like past the point of stress and he was looking forward to Brazil and so on. And that was kind of, for him, it was like he wanted to finish off in Brazil, and that there has been a conversation that he wouldn't be against basically taking the last 3 races off, like, because they can, under the contract, if both agreed, they could do it, and that it would give Kimi time to basically bed in before the new season and give Lewis time to switch off before going to Ferrari. And essentially, I think there was some conversation I heard that Mercedes basically could have lapsed it completely to say he could go and basically start like before December or before January with Ferrari, not drive, but kind of get embedded with the team and so on. I can't see, like,
I doubt it.
I very much can't see it happening. I heard basically the conversation I had is it's unlikely to happen, but earlier in the season when he was struggling, they did have a conversation about it, and that was as much as it could be. How much of that's true, I don't know, but these are people that don't generally bullshit me, like, so I imagine it was more of he was really down. Weird. Yeah, he said if this was the last time I get to perform,
what does it mean?
I think Sai pointed it out. Sai corrected it, or not corrected, but I posted it in the chat we have with Sai, and Sai made a good point. It could be that this was the last race where Mercedes thought they'd have a car that could perform and that there'll be no more upgrades. And basically he's thinking but it's an odd phrase,
I think Mercedes would do well in Qatar compared to here.
I thought so too, yeah. So it's just a strange sentence, but that's what Sai's reasoning was, which is fair. Like, maybe that is accurate, but yeah, it was a strange sentence. And then as soon as he said that, I did think, someone did tell me earlier in the year, and I was like, bullshit. I can't remember when it was, but it was, I can't remember which race it was after, but I remember talking to a guy from Mercedes, and he said, I've heard that, Toto and Lewis basically have a conversation, and it along the lines of, if at any point, like later in the season, you want to, and apparently there was kind of a laughy kind of after Brazil, like that kind of thing. And it made sense to me at the time, because I was like, Brazil is obviously a race he's not going to want to miss, and like, if they had, but I was like, there's no way that's serious. That's probably just Toto and him going, look, I know this isn't going well, let's finish on a high, whatever happens. So, I'm sure it means nothing. But it was interesting when I heard that, and I went, oh, the fuck? Like, what's that about,
Yeah, but afterwards, his, whatever media scrum he had, he was a bit like, yeah, I'm waiting for Christmas and stuff like that. So
yeah, so I can't see it. Happening.
Yeah, I don't see that happening either. But what do you make of his entire weekend?
Jesus, it was just a shit show.
By the way, just to clarify, we don't intend to shit on Lewis, but that's it. Go for
it. We don't intend to shit on Lewis. Now for 5 minutes of shitting on Lewis.
Yeah.
No, like it just wasn't a very good weekend. Like, and nothing went his way, and performance-wise, he just wasn't there. And at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of people, especially Hamilton fans, obviously, who for some reason put themselves in a box of calling George a shit driver when they shouldn't have, and now can't back out of that, so they have to blame the team and the car parts and sabotage, when realistically the option is Russell's actually just a very good driver and he's more comfortable with this car than Lewis is, and that's basically the end of it.
I think that's not even the case.
I also think he's switched off completely as well. I think he gave up after. I think Silverstone was like a high, right? And then Spa, obviously, that was a different win, because of the way it went.
Yeah.
But I think after Silverstone, I think he was on a little bit of a high for a while, and then I think what happened is, as soon as the performance dropped off again, I think for him it's kind of, he's done everything now, so it's like kind of just, it's over, I'm finished here. And when Lewis switches off, he switches off. Like, I've seen this a few times in the past. When he switches off, he's just not there anymore. And I think we're seeing that now.
I think it's even worse, honestly. I think there's an element of not willing to adapt. Lewis is a driver. Again, this has often been said and talked about by a lot of his past engineers at McLaren, at Mercedes, where they've said that Lewis did not spend as much time in the engineering bit as probably his teammates did.
Yeah.
I think
he admitted
as age catches up, you see that playing a role. Because, look, he's a talent. He's probably going to go down in F1 history as one of the greatest talents. Put him in any car as a 24, 25-year-old and he's going to basically extract whatever's there. The thing is, when you're 40, it does not come as easily and you have to work your ass off. You have to really, really push.
Alonso literally ended relationships to like he is full on like racing is my only focus.
Yeah.
And I think the difference is Hamilton, as you said, like he needs to be just all in, and Hamilton has the other things he wants to do.
And he's not, and I'll be honest, I don't think he's ever faced this situation where, again, just a reminder, this is a car that is built on his input. The thing is, the Mercedes that is there right now. He
designed it, I think, didn't he? According to his fans at the start of the season.
Yeah, of course. And the thing is, this car has potential. It is fast. If things worked, this car would have won the race on Sunday. George was winning the race.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And if that is happening and you're struggling to score 1 point, trying to overtake an AlphaTauri, then I'm sorry, it cannot always be a case that you're on a compromise setup, you're on experimental stuff or whatever. You're just not putting the hard yards.
I mean, look.
And I think there was this, by the way, there was this video they shared of Lewis going through the puddles and struggling with the car. The problem is, you look at George's onboards, they are literally the same. There's no difference. He's also struggling through that car, but he's extracting the lap time out of it. And I think the problem here is he has an elite driver in the same car with him and he's just getting exposed big time right now. That's what is there.
I think this is the difference though, isn't it? Like this is the problem, that the age and kind of checking out will make a difference as well, because when Russell has struggled, he knows he's long term there, so he will continue getting the head down and working on it and, you know, going through everything. And I think Lewis is kind of like, well, in fairness as well to Lewis, one thing, he probably can't do a lot of that now at the minute either, because he's decided to leave. So there's certain technical briefings and so on he's just not allowed into anymore, which is just the norm for anyone who calls sabotage. That's just, it's obvious that's what happens. You don't want your driver taking info but to be honest, as much as I do think that could be a factor in it, the form has been here kind of all season, you know, and like there's been a couple of races where he's been really good, but in those races where he's been like, where he's won even, Russell has been brilliant as well. So it's not like it to put it this way, like you said, if it was like swinging back and forth all season, it'd be one thing, but it's constantly in Lewis's direction. And the Hamilton fans put that as, it's they're always, you know, picking George. But it's like, no, like the team has nothing to gain from doing that. Yeah. So it for me, it's Hamilton's form seems to have dropped off this year at points. He's been really good at certain points, but it seems like once things go wrong, he has no interest in kind of fixing it. And that for me is a worry, because in the past when things went wrong, he would very much put his head down and get back in the game for the next race or whatever. I don't know, like, if he has this attitude right now, is it just a switch? Like he goes to Ferrari and he puts his head down and you know, like, I don't know. It
doesn't work like that, right?
No. As we said earlier about Norris, right? Norris should build the momentum now so that it's ready for next season.
Yeah.
Like, you know, as Rosberg did against him.
Yeah. So. It's just I think we are at a stage where we're just seeing what happens when an elite driver is teamed up with Lewis, and the lead driver is consistent as well. We saw shades of it when Button was doing it to Lewis regularly. He used to do that, and I think this season is just one way street. You can look at the point standings and make your conclusions whichever way you want. Even there, I think Russell has jumped him now, but
I think so, right?
yeah, he did. And that's why actually Lewis said, I don't care if George beats me in the standings. But the thing is, you don't care. If you stop caring about such a thing, I've never seen Lewis actually admit that he does not care if his teammate beats him. That's, I think he's tainting his legacy. Let's just put it this way.
Yeah.
If Lewis had retired, I'll tell you something. 2020 Turkish Grand Prix, that's Lewis Hamilton's peak. Since then, everything has gone downhill. And if Lewis retired in 2020, if after that very race or saw out the season, what we would have is Lewis Hamilton having a very concrete case of being the GOAT.
Yeah.
But what we've seen afterwards is, as soon as the car is not perfect, not dominant, he was not the best driver in 2021. Quite clearly. 2022, 23, 24, he's seen himself, I'd say, outperformed by George Russell. And how does one call him the greatest of all time if
But 2023
every time the car gets worse, you're just losing?
But this is the thing, like 2023, the car, like there was a big swing after Monaco where Russell went from being, I thought, comprehensively a better driver up until kind of Monaco. And then they changed the package and Russell really couldn't get to grips with it, right? But Russell kept his head down, and by the end of the season, you could see Russell was kind of, okay, I'm getting on top of this now. And this season, now that he's in the points lead, sorry Hamilton fans, but there is literally no way to justify Russell not being better than Hamilton this year. You had the points, which I disagreed with. I was like, right, there's mitigating circumstances on the points there.
It's look at every head-to-head.
It's 8 to 13, so 13 to 8, sorry, for Russell in the races. Right, 4 to 1 in sprints. It is 16 to 5 in qualifying, 4 to 1 in sprints for qualifying. So that is a comprehensively, like, the thing is, it's like, you know, if we look at other drivers down the grid where it's that kind of swing, you've got 18 to 3 for Lando and Piastri in qualifying. So that's probably one of the closest. Carlos Sainz race to head is 6 to 13. So, I mean, put it this way, Charles Leclerc is basically along the same lines as Russell in terms of beating Sainz.
Yeah.
So, like...
And we don't really rate Carlos as one of the lead drivers. So
no. It's 14 to 7 Lando to Piastri in races. So, like, you've got the same people who will say that Hamilton is better than George telling you that Piastri is better than Norris.
Lando.
And in neither case does it really stack up. You know,
neither of them went to school or studied maths.
Yeah, or studied maths. Yeah. So look, I don't know. I'm concerned because I said it. Like, I know that for Lewis, it's a big paycheck and living out a bit of a dream, going to Ferrari and all of these things. But I think it's going to tarnish the legacy more because
legacy is gone.
If he can't beat George as his own team, he's not going to beat Leclerc at his team. I don't think.
Yeah.
And I think, as I said earlier, if he beats Leclerc, I'm going to be incredibly impressed because I think he's beating the full package of Leclerc now. Yeah. This is no longer just the qualifying specialist, if you want. This is a guy who kind of has everything now.
I'm still skeptic that he might be able to do, and one of the biggest reasons is because I think Ferrari's not the full package, and Ferrari might screw up with Leclerc, just like McLaren is doing it with Lando. That's where I worry, because I think if that happens and Leclerc's shoulders fall, so you see a situation where Lewis takes over, because again, Lewis is Lewis. It's just, I mean, it's a very simple thing, man. We talk about the greatest of all times.
I don't think Leclerc's shoulders can fall any further. I think the damage is done. So
that's also there. That's also true. Do you think Mercedes should rest Lewis for the last 3 races?
Honestly,
I'll share the two aspects. One of them is the business aspect, where the answer is no. It doesn't make any fucking sense you do that. Sporting aspect, I think he should. I think Toto should give Kimi a try.
I think it makes sense for them to do it. Like, I think there's a chance it could happen for the last race. I don't think Lewis wants to miss Vegas, for example, regardless of how bad it goes. You know, it's a big event. Lewis is very much thinks of himself as like this superstar in America, so he wants to build that, you know.
What do you mean he thinks of himself as a superstar?
I'm not getting into this conversation. He is not bigger than F1. No one is. Yeah, so like, I think people know Daniel Ricciardo more. But anyway, I just said that because I know how many people that's gonna piss off. He's a big star in the US now because the US loves winners. But, you know, Max Verstappen is kind of the guy people root for in the US at the minute because they like winners. You know, that's just who the US is.
Max will, I think, appear on a pod in Flagrant. What I've heard.
With Andrew Schultz. Yeah. I love that podcast.
Most probably.
And Singh.
It's fun.
What's his name?
It's fun.
He's an Indian guy in there as well.
Akash,
yeah. I don't pretend to learn his first name. I don't treat Indians as real people. So
have you remembered even my name? Look, every seventh person you meet is an Indian.
I know, yeah, no, I'm joking, but we are looking for a co-host replacement.
Jason.
Yeah. So like, he clearly stuck around because, and he said this in a few occasions, he wants to go for the 8th. But I think at some point, I think Ferrari is the roll of the dice, and if Ferrari doesn't go well next year, I don't think it's going to go well in 2026 either for him.
I don't think so too. So, again, the direct comparison, I think Alonso sticking for as long as he has, it has enhanced his legacy because, boy, is he doing some brilliant stuff in that car that does not deserve to be anywhere near where it is right now. Lewis is not doing that. Lewis is getting showed up with a young, fast driver alongside him. That's maybe where Alonso has probably got the advantage.
No, you know what I think the big difference is between Alonso and Hamilton there, though? Hamilton came into the sport, right? And I remember him coming into the sport, and it was like first black driver. You know, this was and he's made a big deal of this as well. And to be fair, it was a big deal. Like, I'm not diminishing that.
Yeah.
Because it was like very much a white boy sport for a long time. But like, you know, still is. Yeah. So like, I'm not diminishing that. And it's a big deal. But I think he's kind of also like most drivers, most sports people have a chip on their shoulders. But I think like a lot of these drivers, they get over that. And like Max, for example, I think had that chip on his shoulder, his dad's pressure and so on. Max won the world championship and then just wanted to keep winning because he likes winning. So that kind of chip off his shoulder is gone. You know, it's like, right, now I just want to win. Alonso's the same. No matter what people think about Alonso just thinks Alonso is the best. So Alonso will keep racing regardless of what you think. He doesn't give a shit about his legacy. He's just like, I'm the best, I'll keep racing. Whereas when Lewis answers, he's like, I want to go for that 8th because I need to be the best. You know, like I need to be. And it constantly feels like he's trying to prove that to himself, but also because he puts pressure on it, it does tarnish his legacy when he's not winning because he's creating that expectation for his legacy. Whereas Alonso is just like, if I have the best car, I'll win. I don't give a fuck. Like, you know, that. So you can't hurt Alonso's legacy because he doesn't give a shit about it. You know, like, so if Alonso cared about his legacy, he wouldn't have come back.
I have a slightly different view when it comes to Lewis. I think he's made a business decision to actually stick around. Because him being in Formula 1 is more lucrative than him leaving the sport right now.
Yeah, that is true. But you can't win with that attitude, I don't think.
And he's not winning.
Yeah, no, that's my point.
He's not. And
he's not going to, I don't think, either with that attitude.
Again, this is going to piss off a lot of people, but frankly, going to... again, it makes a lot of sense. There's drive, there's everything. But I don't think... I mean, I've seen Alonso in Alpine, a team where the car is just... It broke for no reason in far too many races. And even then you saw him in the last race, he was still hustling that car, still going wheel to wheel with Ocon, both of them just hating each other, but still. And he did that, even though he knew he was going to Aston Martin next season.
Yeah. This is my point. Attitude, Alonso is, this is going to piss people off, but Alonso is closer to Verstappen in that respect. that Alonso just wants to drive and win. He doesn't care about how many titles he gets. He doesn't care about X, Y, and Z. I'm sure he does a little bit, but
he wants to be recognized as the best.
But yeah, sure.
I think still one thing that stands out for me for Alonso, and I think this is what typifies him above everything else. There was this whole conversation about Kyle Larson versus Max Verstappen and Alonso, and the question was pitched to Alonso that Kyle Larson is saying that he's faster than Max Verstappen. Alonso's reply was, "I'm faster." That's it. That's it. And that should tell you everything about it.
He also said, what was it? Like, he has a lot of respect for Max as well, though.
Yeah,
even in that. What was it? At the end of the podcast, they said, person you'd like to have a drink most with or something like that. And he said Max Verstappen.
On a podcast. It was
That's Max. What it was. Who would you invite on your podcast? Max Verstappen.
Yeah, it was Max.
So, like, I don't know. Like, look, Alonso has the benefit of he's been written. I think Alonso was written off by most people like a long time ago.
Yeah.
So Alonso only has upside now. You know, like if you don't think Alonso is one of the greats, you're never gonna think he's one of the greats. So like, Alonso doesn't really have anything to lose by keeping going. Whereas I think Lewis does, because like if Alonso, right, simple way to put this out, because I don't want to go on about this forever, but Alonso is not using F1 to build anything outside of F1, basically. All of Alonso's like interests and focuses and investments are in racing. He's even managing young drivers. He has his karting thing now in his championship. I think he's starting. Maybe I'm wrong there, but he's invested in.
Next year, he will have 2 drivers. He would be managing 2 drivers on the grid.
Yes, but he's also got his own go-kart business as well, right? And his own go-kart track.
Something,
yeah. So like, all of his interests are in racing. So Alonso basically just wants to focus on racing, and that's the thing for him. Whereas, like you said, Lewis has his interests outside of Formula 1. He wants to build a presence outside of Formula 1, and probably realizes that if he doesn't stay in Formula 1, then a lot of that sway goes away. Like, no one cares about bees since Vettel, left, basically.
That's the first thought I had.
Personally, I'm eating more honey and killing more bees ever since he left, just to make sure he comes back. But yeah, so I don't know where this rant was going, but basically just to say, I think Lewis needs to be careful, because I think if the longer he sticks around, the more he tarnishes that legacy. Whereas I think, like you said, Alonso kind of, if Alonso's legacy was going to be tarnished, it's been done. Like, it's not,
I mean,
you can't really tarnish it anymore.
Yeah, Alonso only. By the way, I mean, let's switch gears towards Alonso as well. Aston Martin. Boy, did I feel he was in tears after the race in front of the media, and you could see that he was in pain. That car, what a piece of junk. Honestly,
part of his legend as well. Did you see the thing where he's like, I want to retire, but we should get to the end? He basically said, like, the mechanics rebuilt these cars. I'm not retiring.
Yeah.
Like, that's
at 43.
That's incredible. You know, that's incredible.
I just
Lewis has a slightly bad tire, and he tells him we should retire the car. But anyway, that's another conversation.
Yeah, I thought he would retire. I expected Lewis to retire during the Brazilian Grand Prix. The amount of times he complained about the ride, the car, and whatever. By the way, if you notice, this time around they've not come out with any explanation or anything. Mercedes.
No.
Nothing.
Because you can't explain it. Like, Russell was leading the race. They were on they're in the same cars. Like, if the setup goes wrong, then tough shit. That's Lewis. You need to get on top of your setup. Like, you can't.
And look,
if the other driver can do it, then tough.
Yeah, and if the setup's gone wrong, just replicate the same setup here and start from the pit lane, and and enforce such a thing. It's like the people act as if Lewis is a little child and anyone can bully him around. That's just not how it's there. And you cannot tell me otherwise. I've seen the 2015 season, 16 season, where everyone basically begged him to speed up, and he didn't in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And you're telling me this guy gets bullied around. Shut the fuck up. No, you don't know the sport.
I think next year is going to tell us whether one of two things has happened this season, I think. Either he has just completely switched off and given up. Like, basically, he had a couple of bad races and just said, right, look, I've already won Silverstone, I'm out. Like, mentally has switched off. We'll know if that's just the case if in Ferrari he comes in and he's absolutely on it, like with Leclerc. Maybe not first race, I think that would be too much to ask, but let's say 5 or 6 races in, if he's all of a sudden starting to get on the back of Leclerc, first race, whatever, he's not going to be there. Like, he's got some learning to do. But let's say we get through the halfway point and he is properly challenging Leclerc, then it's like, okay, it's not so much Mercedes' fault, it's just he switched off. He switched off, but talent-wise, he's back. But if we get to the end of next season and Leclerc has comprehensively beaten him again, like this, for 2020, the entire season, for me, it's like, right, well, I can forgive maybe half a season for adjusting.
Yeah.
But a full season, if you're still in the back half of the season, nowhere near him, the form has dropped. And if anyone starts telling me, it's Ferrari favouring, no, I'm sorry, Ferrari didn't pay $100 million a year to favour one driver. Like, cop the fuck off.
To hire a second driver.
Yes.
Basically.
No. They already had a second driver that is very capable, who won a race in Mexico and then was forgotten about in the next race. But yeah.
That was interesting, by the way. Anyways, I'm moving on to Fernando Alonso and the Aston Martin thing. Because, boy, I think the last few races has proved one thing. I don't think Max Verstappen is moving to Aston Martin anytime soon.
No. Do you notice Jos has stopped going to Mercedes as well? I wonder what's happened there.
You saw all of them having lunch or something that very weekend. I mean,
Can you imagine, by the way, how bad it would look right now after, say, Brazil with Hamilton, if Verstappen had have been signed for 2025? Like, if Jos had got his way.
Yeah.
Like, if Jos had got his way, and now it's like Red Bull have just gotten everything together, and Max is leaving, it would have been like, Jos, you are a fucking moron. Well, I am like Jos is a moron because he wanted to do it, but it publicly would have been like, what is going on? That would have been... This would be Max finishing on 4 titles. But yeah, I don't think he's going to Aston either. Like, he's not going to any team anyway. For 2026, neither, I think, no.
I think I had my doubts earlier, but I think there was one thing that was very symbolic, by the way. Pierre Vache was the one who was on the podium. And that should tell you everything. This is basically Horner giving him the limelight, which he never got. When Newey was there. And he deserves the credit. Look, the car was fastest. There's no two ways about it. Red Bull was the fastest car, and...
In the wet, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, in the wet. Without
McLaren made really poor choices, I think, with the setup for the wet.
Yeah.
Really poor choices.
I think the car never worked, honestly. It was... Lando got the pole on a drying track, and it was never that dry in the race, so... They
really poorly set it up, I think, for the race, anyway. Anyway, Pierre Vache, Max going to Aston...
Not even that. I mean, where does... What happens with Aston when Newey comes in? I mean, does it happen like this? Or
no.
what?
And actually, did you watch the podcast with Tom... Not Tom Holland, not Spider-Man, the other one, Tom Clarkson. Yeah. And I made this mistake last week. And Alonso.
Yeah. No, I haven't, no.
It's a great podcast.
The 400 races one.
Yes, and Alonso talked about a few things, including the fact that Alonso is so, like, he's doing things. This is why I guess I'm like, Lewis has checked out a bit, because Alonso was talking about last year when they had the fast car at the start of the season. And Alonso said he turned to the engineers and so on, looked at the characteristics of the car, and he said, unfortunately, even when they did what I wanted, we started to lose some performance and we weren't sure why. But he said, as soon as that car was quick in the low speed sections, he said, I told them no upgrades until after Monaco. Leave it exactly as it is. And he said, I watched every Monaco Grand Prix. He's like, I watched all of the feedback, and he's like, I planned out. He's like, that is the one I will win. And he literally said, like, I planned for the whole... And he said, unfortunately, we had dropped off a little bit, or Red Bull had gotten better, so it wasn't perfect. And of course, he's going to back himself up with some excuses to be like, this is why we, whatever.
Yeah.
But he really, like, head down focused on that. But in that podcast, they said, so should we expect you to be fighting in 2025? And he said, no. He said, like, do you think it's like Newey can help you fight in 2025? And he's like, first of all, no.
2026
Like,
or 5?
they talked about 2025 because they said, like, do you think Newey's going to come in and fix everything for 2025? And he said, no. He's not coming until March or April anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe May. Like, he wasn't sure on the dates. I think it's March. And he said his focus will not be on the 2025 car. His focus will be on 2026. And he said, and realistically, for me and Lawrence and the team agree, second in the constructors is the same as eighth in the constructors. So he's like, we have basically already written off 2025. We're focused fully on 2026. Like, basically from now, they're focused on 2026. So he said, like, he knows, and like Tom Clarkson was like, and you're okay, and like knowing you're not going to be anywhere in 2025. He's like, yeah, we're focused on 2026. He's like, being eighth is the same as losing to me, so it doesn't, or being second is the same as losing to me, so there's no point, you know. I was like, that attitude is brilliant, like, you know, that's just.
And Alonso can do that, right? And I'll tell you something, if the car is dominant and Alonso is winning in 2026, forget about him retiring. He's not going anywhere.
No, not going to happen. No way.
No way. He waits for 20 years to get a good car, and you think he's going to retire after one season?
To be honest, even if they lose the championship in 2026, but they're winning races and competing, he's staying around. He's not.
He is not going anywhere.
No way.
He's not going anywhere.
So I think the thing is, like,
but I do think heads will roll.
Does Verstappen go there for 2026? I don't think so.
No,
because I think the problem for 2026 for Max is, like, he's probably not going to want to roll the dice on anything. So I think one of two things happens. Either 2025 goes well at Red Bull and he just gives Red Bull a chance for 2026, or if 2025 goes well for Red Bull, he thinks about 2026, gives them another season, sees what happens, and then can kind of decide where he's going. Because no one's going to forget about Max Verstappen in 2 seasons anyway. So even though they did with Daniel Ricciardo, but that's a different driver. It doesn't matter. I think he either sticks with Red Bull for 2026 or he takes a year off and comes back in 2027 with a different team.
I don't think he takes a year off.
No, probably not.
I don't. I think a lot will depend on...
less I think it'll happen.
I think a lot will depend on the trajectory of Red Bull in 2025. Because, look, right now the car is, third fastest in terms of performance.
Yeah. Whenever he wins, it's the fastest car. But
but otherwise it's not. And that's just... Look, you cannot expect a miracle and all of a sudden Red Bull will be the fastest car next year in Bahrain. That's that's a bit... It would be a surprise if that happened, but I don't expect them to be. And if that is the case, they're already facing an uphill challenge, and things can only... And again, it all depends on what kind of car there is, and if ultimately Pierre Vache is in a situation where he's not comfortable in his role, Newey is gone, and he knows how he wants to guide this whole thing forward. It will come down to that. If Red Bull can make incremental progress, and if they're fighting for the championship in 2025, if they are somehow they've fallen off and they're not fighting for the championship, maybe we might see a situation where Max just says, okay, I'm done. If you can't even get this car over the line, then what fate do I have for 2026?
Yeah.
Maybe that way it might happen. I still think there's a George Russell, you can say, part of the puzzle that I'm still not able to understand. I think George might move somewhere. Because if Kimi Antonelli, because by the way, I'm very impressed with Ollie Bearman, the way he's... I don't want to say it, but he's smash Hulk in whatever opportunities he's got.
Yeah.
And he did that in Brazil. Brazil is basically Hulk's one of the favorite tracks. So if he's doing it there, you expect him to do well in general. And if he's this good, I put this question to... I had a slight chat with Valentin Harunchi. He's from the race. And he said Ollie Bearman is post was Ollie Bearman is brilliant right now, whatever he's doing next to Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
And my next tweet was, if Ollie is this good, how good is Kimi? Because Kimi Antonelli was beating Ollie Bearman comfortably in F2.
Yeah.
I said, that is what I was thinking as well, because it's an enticing prospect. And if
it's
somehow,
really going to be, it's really going to be a test of Russell, isn't it? Because
it's either a test for Russell, or it's a scenario where Russell maybe acts a bit smart and sees the, you can say, sees the writing on the wall and moves to, maybe gives a call to Aston Martin. I think that would be
the problem
a good
Russell's going to have is, I think, like, while it'd be a good call, like, Alonso is not going to give that seat up unless he's literally dead.
No, Lance.
If Lance goes to WEC, maybe. I mean, that might be the option. That the ideal situation is Lance goes to WEC and Alonso and Russell are alongside each other.
I think if Lawrence is serious, and I think he is now. I mean, I've been back and forth on this, but I think if Lawrence is serious about winning a championship in Formula One, I think his son has to go. But I mean, in Brazil, what the fuck was he doing? He crashed out on a formation lap. So, I mean, there's
and then spun around into the gravel afterwards.
It's just what are we doing there? So,
God.
At some point, look, there have been rumors that heads will roll at Aston Martin. Maybe Dan Fallows is gone. Most probably because this car continues to become worse by the day. If that is happening, I think the questions need to be asked that if the team is not even maximizing what's there. Because look, there's also one, again, maybe it should not be, but there's also a question mark over Alonso as well. He's being compared to a Lance Stroll. He's not being compared to a top driver or even a decent driver. He's compared to a mediocre driver. And in Alpine, Ocon gave him a tough fight. So how good is Alonso right now? We don't even know that. So a lot of questions on that front.
He's 14-7 against Lance in the races.
Yeah.
What is it?
So I mean, while that's good, it's not bad, but it's just a case of
16-5 in qualifying as well. So I don't know.
It was 4-4 at one time, by the way.
Yeah, I think.
But I think it was funny. It was 4-4 at one time, and Lance said, "Well, I'm 4-4 with Alonso, so I don't know what you're talking about." And since then, it's been 12-1.
Yeah. I mean, so like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I think Alonso as well. Like, you know, when he gets a sniff of a decent car, he just goes crazy for it. But you know, like, maybe they are just working on stuff now. Maybe they're just trying everything, and it's just like, right, let's just put everything in. Like he said on the podcast, like everything's focused on 2026. So maybe they're just like, let's try this, try that, try this, try that. You know, so we know everything going into that season. Maybe. You know, who knows? It's difficult to say.
Finally, by the way, just to wrap the whole thing up, we've been going on for a while.
Yeah, we should end in 10.
Yeah, let's talk about the team whose cap you're wearing. Alpine.
Yeah. Well, I think
team.
What I've been told by Twitter is that luck doesn't play any factor into a successful race for a successful driver. So I think we have comprehensively proven that Ocon and Gasly are better drivers than Leclerc, Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Perez, Alonso, Piastri. Basically everyone. The way that we've learned from Brazil is that it's Verstappen and then Ocon and Gasly. Those are the best drivers on the grid because apparently luck doesn't favour in one single piece. No, like honestly,
but Ocon was already P3, right? When the whole shenanigans happened.
Shut up and don't ruin my joke. Ocon was already driving brilliantly. Yeah, look,
he could have won. I think he could have won if the condition, if there was no safety car stoppage or anything, he could have won.
And Ocon and Gasly as well they're really both really good drivers at being there in a situation where there's something to gain. Like
they're basically Carlos Sainz but French.
Yes, exactly. Like Ocon in Monaco last year, for example, getting on the podium. You know, like there's Gasly. I'm sure has done things as well. I just don't care.
Zandvoort,
Monza a couple of years ago.
Gasly, I'm sure has done things.
I just don't care. I'm not a huge fan of either of them. I bought this Alpine hat as a joke, and it's actually come out more than I expected. So,
jokes on you.
I think it's just vital proof that Flavio Briatore is really a mastermind behind everything.
Apparently,
since he's come back, everything's
well. By the way, just think about it. They were looking to fire Esteban Ocon after Monaco. Bruno
Hmm.
Furman was such a dumb person.
Do you think if Bruno Famin wasn't
so
there,
fucking stupid.
I think if Bruno Famin wasn't there, there's a solid chance that Flavio would have kept the driver lineup as is. I think I've dealt with it, maybe. Um,
I think
or he
Ocon
would
was
have
already
pushed for
gone,
that.
right? Ocon had already.
Well, who's coming in next year? Jack Doohan. Is that an upgrade? No. You know what I mean? Like, so
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. After
maybe.
the
Yeah,
way
I've no idea.
F2 has been going on, he's good, by
Yeah,
the way. He's good,
he's good,
but
but
he's not Ollie Bearman. That's what I'll say.
so
And yeah,
oh, was it brilliant race? What that's pushed them? What was it? They 40 points they got from that or something, or
yeah.
is it
They
40?
got 18 plus 15, which is 33. So they've jumped
Is
from
that all? I thought it
P9
was more
to
than that for some reason.
P6. Yeah, because earlier it was Ocon had 25, right, for the lead. So it was supposed to be
Right.
40. And
Yeah,
then
sorry,
Max
that's
jumped
why
in.
I'm getting mixed up. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but like, it's crazy, isn't it? They've gone from eighth to sixth in
Ninth
one
to
race.
6th. Ninth
Ninth
to
to sixth.
6th.
Was it ninth? Oh, it was ninth to sixth. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, they've jumped Haas and RB, who thought they'd be fine.
Williams, Haas, and RB.
They could well keep that as well because the car, it's not great, but
What's the gap?
you know, they're 3 points ahead of Haas and 5 points ahead of RB. But
They
there's only
might
three
tear it up
races to
RB.
go, and they've
Not.
kind of been consistently in the points. So I
No,
wouldn't
this
be
is.
surprised. No.
No, this is the.
Listen,
Other
since
than.
Flavio came in, they've been consistently in the points, and I don't want you doing your thing of looking up facts and telling me
Okay.
reason, right?
Okay.
They've been consistently in the points.
Yeah. Got it. I mean, just look at how many points they have right now. Just
Yeah, yeah.
average it out
And-
for every race.
And when Gasly crashes in Las Vegas and brings out a perfectly timed safety car and Ocon wins the race, there will only be one man that we know has dealt with all of this.
Oh God.
Flav. I miss Flavio. He's back though. It's brilliant. Yeah.
By the way, Nelson Piquet was also at the paddock.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh,
That
man.
drew out a laugh. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew people are not going to like that. I mean, as soon as I saw him, it was an Instagram post with him and Kelly Piquet. Like, this is going to go down well. People are going to take it very, very, very nicely. And
I just think F1 and the FIA can't, like, they've done so much that they can't try and give themselves this, like, you know, this reasonable, like, we're above this, because you can't, like, say, oh well, like, okay, you can't say Nelson Piquet made a racist remark.
By the way,
Technically it was
actually,
racist, but it also kind of wasn't, because the word he said was actually the Portuguese, it's kind of similar in Spanish, the word for black guy, which people use a lot here in Mexico, and it's not meant racially.
if you, I follow a lot of MMA, and there are a lot of Brazilians. And if you go through the descriptions of any image, you'll see that word a lot. You'll
Yeah,
see that word, and
there's
it
tons and
is
tons
alarming.
of it. It's the thing is, it's not meant racially, but someone could technically use it racially if they wanted to. The problem was a lot of Brazilians were coming on and going, "Oh, it's a really racist term, and we don't use it in this country." And then
There's a
the
reason
problem
behind it, by the way.
But the problem for that was I clicked into a few of those profiles, and they all had the number 44 in there. So I was a bit like, "No, I don't know how much I can." You know, I don't know how much I can say.
No,
the
there's-
problem for
there's
me is
another
I
reason,
live
by
in
the way.
Mexico and I know people use that word a lot, but they don't mean
Yeah.
it in a racist way.
Yeah.
They call
Yeah.
me güero all the time, which is like white boy. It's just kind of a,
Okay.
you know, it's a kind of a thing. So
Yeah. By the way, there's also another reason why Piqué gets hated, because Piqué is, I think, pro Bolsonaro, and
yeah, that doesn't help.
currently
as
it's
well, yeah.
Lula is the
Yeah.
president, right? And Bolsonaro,
Yeah, so-
Bolsonaro is on the run. So
Bolsonaro is like the Trump of Brazil, basically, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. Like, but I think just you can't you can't ban Nelson Piquet from going to his own like home race if you want. Like, you know,
he's a 3-time world champ, by the way.
exactly. And then hire Pat Simmons to work directly with F1. You know, like I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
I never get that. How did Pat Simmons find his way back to the paddock?
but this is like
amazing.
you can't say right. He said something that some people could construe as racist. This
Yeah.
guy cheated in a race, right? Like, and not even just might have cheated. We know
Yeah.
he cheated. Like, you know what I mean? And he
I mean,
works now
honestly,
for
let's-
F1.
let's be honest, there's only one reason behind it, and it's just PR. That's
Yeah,
all.
of course,
I
yeah.
mean,
So
F1 made a big deal about this because it was Lewis Hamilton. It played a big role.
mhm.
BLM played a big role in F1 because
It
it
was a
was a
wrong. It was
global
wrong
thing.
time as well to be saying anything that could be even
Yeah,
remotely taken. I don't
precisely.
know. The problem I have though is maybe what he's saying was racist. I don't know because like the point I was making to people when this came up was
The problem is
I need
consistency.
to well it's not even that I need to hear the context behind it. Like
Yeah,
if he was talking about Lewis Hamilton in a slanderous way and using the word, then okay, I could see why you could say that is racist, right? Like, and it depends on. I need to see the full context. But all my point was at the time was using that word in isolation in these countries isn't inherently racist. It's not like if you use the N word as a white guy or as a non-black guy, that is just inherently racist. There's no
yeah,
excuse for that. We all know what that word means.
yeah,
That word in Spanish and Portuguese isn't the same.
yeah,
And when my concern when I saw that whole thing was I was like, I haven't seen the context, and in my, like not in my defense, in failure to me, I never bothered to go back and check the context. I was just a bit concerned of people went that word is racist, and I was like, it's not though, not on its own, like it's not. And as soon as people start going that word's racist, for me,
there's
it's like
also a
I'm going to
big
switch
problem, by
off.
the way. PK has not really endeared himself to anyone in the F1
No,
paddock
he's
anyway.
not. He doesn't seem to be a decent human being at all. He has a
That's
really
right.
hot daughter though, so that's good. But yeah, so like no, I don't know. I said this like a couple of weeks ago with the thing, or a few weeks ago now with the rappers thing. I think
Oh,
I
yeah,
think people need to be
that
really
went down well,
careful.
right?
Yeah, but I think people need to. I made this point. Like people need to be really careful with making out everything to be racist because what happens is a lot of people just switch off. And like I'm a person that's quite like synced in with these, like watching these things, and like I want to learn more and not be a prick all the time. So like if someone says
And maybe not
such as
call,
racist,
and just like that, and maybe fans should not call everything British bias because
yeah,
then you're
because what
not taken
happens is
seriously.
everyone focused on the word, which I can say actually it's just the word for black guy. Negrito is what they were talking about, right? And you say it in Spanish as
And
well, in Portuguese.
fortunately, we are not monetized yet
Monetized, yeah.
because
No, but the point is, it's just a Spanish and Portuguese word. So my problem was, like I said, that word in isolation isn't racist. And saw a lot of people at the time, which is why I kind of switched off. I was like, I don't care anymore. Because it was just people saying, he said that word, he's racist. And I was going, well, that in itself isn't racist. So I should have
yeah,
looked up what he actually said and gone through it all. But I was
yeah,
just like, right, people are just being pricks again. So I'm not going to bother. Like and that's the worry we need to have because
yeah.
if everyone just calls everything racist, then people are just going to stop caring about racism because they're going to be like, oh, well,
That's yeah,
everything's racist, so there's nothing I can do about it.
and everything's British bias, and that's a lesson
Nothing I
for
can
a
do about
lot
it.
of Max Verstappen fans that are watching right now. Stop
It's
calling
all the
everything British
time,
bias.
isn't it? It's the whole world now, isn't it, though? It's
Yeah,
like everything is, if you say one thing, you're right wing. They do this, it's British biased. This is biased against him. That's racist. It's like we
yeah.
can't have any logical conversations anymore.
Monolithic. Everything is monolithic.
Yes.
You have to have a single perspective. You cannot basically be diverse. And
Hmm.
that's basically the point is if you are smart enough, you have a decent IQ, you are not accepted these days. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
point.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
Flavio Briatore is brilliant. I think is the key summary
yeah,
to all this. Yeah.
yeah.
He's you. I think it's time for you to end this podcast by admitting how much you love Flavio Briatore.
Let's go.
Oh God, you
I
hate him
won't do
so
that.
much.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I mean, he's a piece of shit. Honestly, he should not be on the grid. I mean,
Yeah.
he should
He
not
should
be
be
on the
back
grid.
where he should be on Epstein's island where he belongs.
I mean, there are a lot of people that belong there, but apparently Trump as well. So that for a
Yeah.
different podcast.
Oh, it's tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, guys, oh, you're watching? Thank you. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and by the way, drop a comment. Please keep the abuses to a minimum. Okay, don't.
No,
Just
maximum.
go
Go
ahead and abuse
crazy.
Jason the heck
Yes.
out of it. We don't
I
mind.
won't read it, so I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the one who's always replying. What the fuck
I
is
know.
going on?
I'm just never bothered going into comments. Even on my own
Yeah.
channels, I rarely go into comments. And like on my other channel,
Yeah.
I just can't be. Yeah. So
Yeah.
thanks everyone. Don't forget
Okay.
to
Take care,
subscribe.
guys. Bye bye.
Bye.